Do you think people would actually use the queue system?
If it was done well, yes.
Yeah,
it's a
I
very
think so.
common thing in other games. Do
Okay.
you know why? Okay, right. Rant. Do you know
People
why
don't use the queue system for strike.
Yeah,
I
do you
just wanna
know?
make
But
that clear.
do you know why though? Because that system is dog shit.
You get the community that you cultivate as a developer. Like, you have to train people early. Yes, there's grouping in this game. Yes, the content's gonna be hard. Get used to it, and people will get used to it.
I really like the strike scams. I think every single one so far has been one of like most fun fights in the game. But just because like sort of the effort required is actually a bit higher than in raids. You're also right, like for example, kiting scam is so long. Like I think someone was joking that you can almost complete like Wing 2 in less time.
Yeah,
than
that's true.
all
That
of
is true, actually.
Kiting.
Yeah.
I can create raid statics and create a community where we're helping people, have a guild full of people that are trying to help others and do all these things. But at some point, I feel like the Zerg rush is winning, that I'm overwhelmed by roaches. and I didn't macro hard enough.
Wait, that's a very Sneb. I don't want to. It's too late now, but you've just described you've just described
I don't care.
You've just described players as roaches. Hello. I'm not muted. Okay, good. Well, I made it. We actually succeeded. Gamers, that was the legendary TeaTime before TeaTime. We've actually been going for an hour at this point. Well, that's not actually that true. Okay, it's nearly an hour, but yeah, it's TeaTime. Welcome. We're talking about various things. What does the title say? It says Dungeons.
That was the Patreon exclusive tea time.
Ooh, yeah.
For the $100 a month tier patrons.
Yes, I mean it's very exclusive. Like that was
not a bad idea.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Tier 3 subs only. In fact, you have to tier 3 sub on 4 accounts to get in because you need the 100 a month, right?
And since it's on Patreon, it'll be topless. TOPPLES.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Well, you better get involved for that, my friends. Goodness me, because that is too hot for Twitch, at least for now, anyway.
Oh my god.
For now.
But anyway,
standards are lower every day.
welcome to TeaTime, everyone. We're going to talk about a few things about Guild Wars 2, but it's a different episode. We're a little bit less news focused because there's not much going on right now, to be honest. We talk about a few little things that have been going on, some things in the future, and some kind of just topics about what's going on with us in the game. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to my wonderful guests. We might as well get into it pretty soon because the one article of news that's actually happened, I think, is a super interesting one, actually, and it's actually about dungeons. In fact, didn't see that one coming. That really is a bit of a really came out of left field with this one. But dungeons have actually been updated in a not the biggest way, I guess, but it's significant. Specifically, all of the currencies have been compressed down into one currency. It's something like Tales of Dungeon Delving. And on its own, that's not the biggest change in the universe. But I do think that the fact that ArenaNet is willing to go and modify content as old as that in a significant way, looking at rewards, that's a big part of it, I think. I think it really is interesting that perhaps we could see not only more changes to dungeons, but also changes to areas of the game that have kind of been left to rot a little bit, right? That is one of the criticisms of ArenaNet, right? That the game has just, they just move on. They never go back and fix anything, really. Never go back and fix some of the problems that exist there. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff there. What do you guys think about dungeons? I think Nike, you're a dungeon expert. Actually, what do you think about this?
I mean, it's a sign, like you said, that they are willing to touch old content, and I was hoping for a little bit more. I heard rumors that dungeons were getting a coat of paint, and I was hoping it would be a little bit more, but I guess it's not the worst change. They could have made things worse. My actual fear was that they were going to, quote unquote, modernize some fights, and certain fights like Lupicus that have like a special charm to them would have gotten sort of modernized in a in a way that just turned them into like a strike boss or whatever, or a fractal boss, which may have ruined what was initially great about them in the first place. So I guess not ruining them is a win.
Wow.
They could have definitely done more. Like there's definitely room to update it, and obviously this is all done for Steam, for the Steam release, so that when new players come to the game, 1 million new players come to the game.
Ooh.
They won't find completely
desolate.
I don't know why like dungeon currency would be the thing that like destroys the souls of new players. They go, look at all these dungeon currencies, I'm out. Like, I don't know that was necessarily the breaking point, but I guess if it helps, if they think that helps, then okay, great. And I know other people have suggested things that they do, like they should make the story dungeons part of the actual story experience so that they weren't optional, which is something that should have been done, when the game launched, so that there would be a culture of people doing instance content from the very beginning of the game, instance group content. But like you said, maybe they will touch other systems. Maybe guild missions aren't dead forever. Who knows?
Yo, I recently accidentally ran into like a pretty bad guild mission bug that's completely broke like guild missions for like half an hour for my guild.
Wait,
and I realized that bug has been in the game for like 8 years or something like that. So I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know.
Huh.
It's really, yeah, it was actually actually a really
What's
bad
the bug? What happened?
I don't. I feel like it's exploitable, so I feel like I should not mention it.
Okay.
Yeah, it actually like majorly breaks it.
Oh no!
It's very like easy to access as well, so I'm kind of amazed that nobody discovered it in the past like 8 years.
Yeah.
But oh well. Regardless though, I think it's a good change as well. I've seen some people on like Reddit and I guess like on Discord and stuff be like, oh well, now nobody's gonna like do ARA anymore because they'll just do the easy paths. But I don't think that many people were still doing ARA for the currency anyway. I don't know. I just think for new players, it's
that one guy who wanted 1 million. He was doing it for the currency, but not for the reason you think.
That's true.
And now, I feel so bad. He'll never get 1 million now. How tragic is that? He will actually never get 1 million ARA tokens.
I mean,
He's been cruelly ripped away.
Like, he will always be known as the person with the most ARA tokens. Like, nobody will overtake him, like, ever.
That's true.
I think that's pretty good.
It's the competition finally ended, right? Everyone was going for the most tokens, but whoever's on top now actually wins, permanently wins. So you've got that going, I guess. I think that that is kind of like a fair criticism, I think, of this implementation. But I think it can be fixed with numbers, right? Like, if they're really worried about ARA playwrights dropping a little bit because now everyone's just playing the other dungeons, they can just make the ARA paths give more tokens.
Yeah.
Make the harder or longer like dungeon paths like give a bit more. I think that's fine. I think it kind of the big criticism that I would have is that it kind of detaches the reward from the content, right? So now you can kind of get any of the rewards by playing any of the content. That is kind of like the Guild Wars 2 MO, so I guess it kind of makes sense. And you could always do that from PvP anyway, right? If you play PvP, you can get in fact, you know what's... This is actually really, really funny, actually. You can get Dungeoneer and without ever playing a dungeon if you just play PvP, I think. Right? I think you might have to beat the dungeon to unlock the path, actually, I think. To unlock the reward track. But after you've done that, you can actually not play a dungeon ever again and just do reward tracks over and over and over and over, and you'll eventually unlock all of the skins and you'll get the achievement. So the rewards are already pre-attached as well. So I mean, I know it's fine. So it's not the end of the world, right?
It's just like so nice for new players though, right? Because like not that many people still do dungeons, so all these like Steam people are gonna like come into the game, and then if they want like, I don't know, a certain who knows, Caudicus Manor armor thing or something, that would be a huge pain for them to always find Caudicus groups. But now they can just like do any dungeon. I actually think they should merge all like the dungeon LFG categories into like one. so you can actually like see them all at once. I think it's just looking at the Steam release, it feels like a solid change to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pointing in the kind of pointing in the right direction. I think it's important to consider these things because a lot of players are going to play free to play at least for a while, right? So they're going to encounter this. I think it's definitely a good thing that the early game kind of reflects the end game. This is a really big problem with MMOs and definitely with Guild Wars too, right? People go, man, the core game is the core game. And then people go, but wait, oh guys, look, just get to the expansions. It's totally different. It's way different, right? That's really unusual. I think it's in some ways you'd want the core game to reflect the current state of the game a lot more. It definitely shows its age. The game has moved on in terms of the way events are designed and the way content is designed. So I think that introducing players to how the end game is going to be, fractals, kind of a bit like dungeons, right? I'd really like to, and look, they're actually doing this with the strike mission in season 1, right? There's going to be season 1, there's a strike mission. So you're going to be introduced to this concept of strike missions at the end of core, which will actually be free to play, right? I believe. I think season 1 is perma free to play for everyone. Yep. So there actually is a free to play strike mission coming out. So you'll have an experience of, oh, what is this main core endgame PvE in Guild Wars 2? I think that type of construction is really, really good because you want to make sure that people actually kind of get the idea, right? The free to play game is kind of like a free trial, right? A demo, as it were, before you maybe go ahead and purchase the expansions and get into it. What do you think, Sneb? Sneb's broken.
I like.
He's destroyed, psychologically, actually annihilated. We'll get into that later, though.
The thing that I like the most about the dungeon currency change is actually just making the wallet a bit cleaner. I think that a lot of people have complained for a long time that there are just too many currencies, and that they release a content, they put a new currency out, and then that currency means literally nothing as soon as the next currency comes out, and it just feels really weird. And so it was becoming like a lot of clutter. So by standardizing this a bit, it removes a lot of the clutter out of the wallet. They did the same thing with the strikes. I think they're really just trying to clean up the game and make it more streamlined so that it's easier to understand when they have an influx of new players. So to me, that's the really cool thing. I would hope that they keep touching up dungeons and perhaps make them a bigger part of the game. Because as it stands, a lot of people are just going to use them for getting some legendaries and stuff. Another kind of interesting change, though, people were kind of going really doomer about how no one's going to do a raw and everything, but you actually have to do the dungeons now to be able to buy the armor and stuff. No?
Yeah.
There's something like that.
Yeah, you to unlock the rewards, you have to do it once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine. So at least people have a reason to keep doing them. If that didn't exist, then it would be full doomer mode engaged. But it's good that people still have a reason to do it. And now, before, I think you could do the reward tracks in World versus World and stuff and never have ever set foot in any dungeon and get all the rewards. So now you at least have to go do the dungeons. So that's good. I think that's fine.
It's good stuff, I think it would be really cool to see more stuff in this direction, right? And not just to dungeons as well. You already kind of get a mail, about dungeons when you get to an appropriate level. I'd really like to see them straight up integrated into the story. They'd probably have to adapt them a lot and add some kind of story mode, not just story mode, story mode, very much like strike missions, right? So they'd have to nerf the story mode a lot. So it's potentially even soloable, right, by a very new player. So that might ruffle a few feathers, because I know that obviously a lot of speedrunners do like to speedrun the story mode as well, not just the explorable paths. So that could potentially cause some issues there. But I think adding them into the main story will be really, really cool. I just don't, if they do that, they can't make it group content. I know this sounds so insane, guys, but I'm sorry. In current year...
No, they should. Fuck them.
No,
they need
can't.
to make it group content. They have to.
They can't.
You have to break people at some point, or else you get a community full of people that shit their pants and can't deal with reality and can't deal with
We're already there. We're already there.
Good.
Yeah.
Get rid of them. Go play Lost Ark. Go do whatever. Get out of here. Stop ruining my game.
No, I agree. with
If
you.
we can break it,
I
like
agree.
you have to set like it's incumbent on in it. You get the community that you cultivate as a developer. If you cultivate Care Bear dolly dress up community that refuses to do group content, that's what you're going to get. Like if that's the incentives that you put into the game, that's what you're going to get. And you're going to get people that like complain about every instance content that's added to the game and don't understand why it should be there, and just give us more story. And like you have to train people early. Yes, there's grouping in this game. Yes, the content's going to be hard. Get used to it, and people will get used to it, or they'll leave. And you know what? No loss.
Not sure about that one. I don't know. I kind of see where you're coming from in the sense that you want people to get used to like group contents, but there are a lot of people in this game who just don't want to, and I don't think that's necessarily an issue, right? I think it's fine if we have solo players as well who just run for all the DRMs by themselves and never ever group up and never open LFG. I don't really mind, those people existing.
I mean, they can exist.
They're probably making a lot of money off those people as well, and they're having a good time, right?
Oh my
god! I think it's nice to sort of cater to both groups, right? Like, I think the nicest thing would be to have the story, and then you can choose whether you want to like solo story or like queue with people. So you don't even have to go to LFG. But I agree, it would be really good if there's like a sort of low effort way to just play some group content in the base story, right? Like you just queue into a dungeon or something. But I don't know. I think we should just make the solo players happy as well.
The story mode dungeons got nerfed really hard, and they are super easy. Any 5 players that are the right level should be able to beat them. Any 5 players.
I think that's why a queue system could work, right?
Yeah,
like the public system.
Wait. Do you think people would actually use the queue system?
If it was done well, yes.
Yeah,
it's a very common thing in other games. Do you know why? Okay, right. Rant. Do you know
people
why
don't use the queue system for strike?
Yeah, do you know why though? Because that system is dog shit.
Because it puts 10 random players together that have absolutely no synergy, and then you just die to the boss over and over again.
No. The system is extremely poorly implemented in strike missions. Because I have genuinely no idea why they made it this way. But after you start, you do like the hello, let's go. It locks the instance. So if someone leaves, you can't join anymore. What? Why would you do it that way? Also, this is a minor thing, but also really annoying. In the public version of strikes, you can't leave, right? The like leave button doesn't exist. The implementation is just it's just really bad. It's really, really bad. Like, if there was a good implementation of an automatic group builder for relatively, for straightforward content that doesn't really require specialized groups, then I think people would use it. Yeah, if it was done well with the UI and executed well in terms of the actual implementation. Boom.
Why didn't DRMs work then?
Because DRMs are
it's the same
putrid,
system, right?
And dungeons are actually fun.
I mean, like, the DRM public system, isn't that pretty much the same as the strike public system? I feel like it's about the same.
It is.
Where it just,
is it still Locket?
I'm not sure, actually.
I think you do get locked. You do get locked on the public. Yeah, it's the same implementation.
Okay. So if they remove that, you think people still use it?
I think people would use it if I think it's actually new players, yes. Current community, no. So I think the current community tried it out when they added it and was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. That's a pretty cool thing." But I think people got a very bad first impression of that system when it was first added because the implementation wasn't very good. So I think a lot of current players won't go anywhere near it, right? However, to be fair, I do think a good chunk of people actually do or rather did, because, I mean, DRMs are kind of dead, right? I think people did use the public for DRMs because, again, you can, not all of them, For example, this one is actually a sleeper. Do you guys know the Caledon Forest strike mission? That is actually a pug slayer, right? With the giant ice elemental guy and like his big frozen aura. It's actually a pug slayer. So I actually do think that people did use it for the ones that don't require a group. For example, Freezy, the Freezy group finder is actually active, right? When that's around in Winter's Day. People do use that, actually. And you can, when it, well, like, you can't do it now, but when it comes around, then you will see that. Oh, you can test it actually. The Dragon Arena, right? The Dragon Arena thing for Dragon Bash. The public version is actually really active. Yeah, people do use it, not just making a. They'll join the public. So,
yeah,
yes.
I think the thing about like a queue system like this is it wouldn't work for hard content, right? Because you need a composition and everything, and like I think most of the veteran playbase doesn't care because we have other ways to make groups. But I think that's for just brand new players. Like having just a public story dungeon mode would actually be nice. I think a lot of people just kind of like LFG is kind of like buried away and stuff, and you have to like talk to people. Like I've been playing Final Fantasy 14 recently, and it's everyone in that game just like goes into the story, and then they have to do a dungeon, and they just press the Q button, and you get a group, and it's like really like well implemented. I feel like Ghost 2 could definitely use something like that, and that kind of goes back to what Nike was saying earlier, where it's good to sort of introduce people to that stuff early. I think something like that could be good. Just having like a very low effort, easy to get into way to play group content. Show people that it's pretty fun. It's not that scary. I think that's one of the best things they could do, probably, before the Steam release. Not expecting it, though. Not at all.
Well, I think like a big problem and why they should do it is the story gates you between the story chapters every 10 levels. And you don't have that little thing in the top, the little green text on the top right of your screen saying, go here for the next like story step or whatever, or report to this character for your next orders or whatever. If you could, instead of every 10 levels, if every 5 levels there was a dungeon filling in, like, so you hit level 30, you get a story step, then at 35 it goes do AC story, then at 40 it says do the next story step, and you just alternate story, dungeon, story, dungeon, story, dungeon to 80. I think that would really help because honestly, grinding 10 levels in the open world for your next story step in vanilla core Guild Wars 2 like lands, that is really bad content. But you can get like 2 levels in AC story mode or 2 levels in Chaoticus story mode, etc. That would go a long way towards like accelerating people through the story, and also making them better players by the end of it, for sure.
Look, I'm gonna activate here because nobody's talking about the problem, and I tried to lead into it, but nobody took the bait. The reason that the DRMs didn't work is because you had experienced players realize that they could go in, auto run into a wall, and then 4 players would just go and complete the thing, and that person would get the same rewards. It was a big problem, problem in the public stuff. So if they do that, they have to find a way to make it so that people engage and can't sit AFK in the back of the dungeon, because otherwise people that are good players will go in and purposefully not participate. And that is a big problem that I don't know why nobody else cares about this but me, but like I think it's a big issue, and it would be like, imagine that you're 4 new friends and you go in and then there's some person and they've got like Omega legendary armor and they're just sitting there making you do all the work for them so that they get, like that's just such a bad impression. I don't know if they have a way to stop that in Final Fantasy. Like what do they do in Final Fantasy if somebody is just sitting at the start of the dungeon or something?
I think they have a vote kick system.
I think you can just kick people,
Oh, that's toxic.
Can you kick people? This just shows how little I've used these systems.
You just kick people, You just kick people.
Can you kick people in DRMs and stuff?
No,
in the public?
I don't think so.
No, because you're not in a group, so you can't. Once you're with someone, you're stuck with them.
Yeah, so I'm not saying, let's kick everybody, because I see why that could be problematic. But what I'm getting at is, imagine if you are a new player and you queue into Ascalonian Catacombs and you have two people who are good players, but they're sitting at the start and making you do the dungeon, and you can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
What are your options? To leave the group and try again?
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
I
Well,
feel
hopefully,
like that's really
if they did
bad,
implement it,
right?
hopefully they'd just make it so that there was vote kick.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that would
they'd have to like revamp it a bit. You're completely right. I feel like the public instance is just a bit jank, just a bit like there's issues like the one you were describing. If they do this like as a story dungeon thing, they would definitely have to revamp it and make it clearer and all that stuff. 100%.
I think they just need to
Yeah.
maybe have a look at like some of these systems right off the bat, right? I mean, you can do loads of really very questionable things, to be honest, in dungeons, right? Like, well, not in dungeons, but you can in like instance PvE with these social systems. You know, you can get to the this one is cruel, Sneb. Okay, you'll enjoy this. Okay. You can go all the way to the end of Forging Steel and kick people from the squad right at the end boss, so they get 0 rewards.
Terrible.
And you just leech it. You just basically solo the boss at the end, and the people you kick get nothing. What the fuck? Who does that? That's actual some psychopath shit, man. Like, if you do that, what is wrong with you? Who does that? You can do the same on fractals too, right? Like, this happens so much, actually, and I hate the fact this happens, right? People will get to the end boss of like 99 CM or you know, like 98 CM or something like that, and they'll go, oh yeah, got a guildie coming, and they'll kick you and then add their guildie, right? And just do the end boss with
Terrible.
them. It's like,
Yeah.
who does
it was
that?
worse.
Right?
It was worse back in the day.
Yeah.
You do fractal 50, get all the way to Jade Maw after doing the first 3 fractals or whatever, kick the pugs, and then sell the slots.
Ooh.
Sell their slot at Jade
Yeah.
Maw.
Do
And
you
it was
remember-
easy money. And that was toxic.
Do you like remember that back in the day there used to be like a hidden party leader? They got like rid of that, but there used to be like the person that opens the instance has to be there. So sometimes you would get these dungeon groups where like
They'd kick the leader and
they would
disband the
kick
whole
the
group.
leader
Yeah.
because they would like, I want to invite my friends, and then everyone gets kicked
Yeah.
out.
Oh man.
You play it yourself. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
when we would sell
Yeah.
dungeons back in the day, we'd have to like have holders. Like you'd fill up the party with like 4 people that you trusted, and you'd invite like one buyer at a time, take their money. One of your holders would leave, invite another buyer, take their money. One of your holders would leave, and then do that one at a time. So that way, if somehow they kicked you out of the group, you would still have gotten paid. So you're still solid.
Oh right, people would like join kick like cell groups and then just kick the seller,
Yeah,
right?
because
And then
that was how they
steal the-
fought back against toxic cell groups, was by
Oh my
kicking the leader and
gosh.
disbanding it.
But
I
this is
remember.
an issue, right? This is a big issue, because you have
Yeah.
to think about the player experience here. You not only want them to be able to access a group quickly, but you want them to access a group that will play with them, so that the game feels more social, even if they're
Mhm.
not communicating necessarily. It's about playing with other people. So it was really anti-fun when DRMs came out, because I remember being like, oh, like this is such a good idea for a system. I joined and there were 2 or 3 players sitting at the beginning, not doing a single thing. And I sat there for a while, and I, went through this for about 5 minutes, and I realized they weren't just, getting a pizza. They were purposefully not going to participate. So I just left. And I think if people witnessed that sort of stuff going on in the early game, I feel like they'd have a really hard, like that's just such a bad player experience. So they absolutely have to fix that. Now the question is how? How do you encourage players play together, or to actually participate in the thing, if there is an option that would give them the reward without doing anything? So they can go and like watch Netflix or order a pizza and never come back.
Well, you just make it so that people can get rid of bad people in the party, or get rid of unethical people in the party. I mean, that's really it.
Yeah.
So you're saying social consequences are the answer? Like that's
Yeah. They
or
just have to-
actual consequences.
They just need to make it so you can actually kick people and it doesn't lock the group. Because the problem with DRMs and the problem with that in DRMs, right, is that there's nothing that ArenaNet can do without changing how it works, because you can't get rid of people. And I actually think that might just be a limitation of DRMs overall, actually. I haven't done a DRM for a long time, which, by the way, just so everyone knows, Dragon Response Mission. But I think your group locks, even if it's a private group, after you do the pre-event, which is just why. So yeah, I think, because I remember doing this on launch, and if someone disconnected, they wouldn't be able to rejoin or something. Maybe they might have fixed that, actually. I don't know, they might have fixed that. But I think that you can't rejoin because of how scuffed the instance is or something like that. And it was like this with strike missions as well. Like, you just, it just locks. It's the current like LFG stuff, it's like broken. It's like totally broken with the way it works and the way it puts you into instance. So you'd have to completely rework that if they wanted to add this to dungeons.
Yeah, and I mean, we're kind of discussing all the details now, right? But like, would they even do this? I don't really think they would. Like, I feel like they'd have to rework such an old system to make this happen. Didn't Crouch say something along the lines of, I think this was actually in your chat, didn't
really?
he say something like that this doesn't necessarily signify they're gonna do a big dungeon rework in the future or whatever, but it's kind of a small change that they did.
Yeah, and he talked a little bit how, like we're looking at it, right? That we're open to more things in the future. Is basically that was the spirit of the message. That's a paraphrase there, guys. Be aware. But yeah, it was very much we're looking at these systems. We're seeing how we can improve them, right, and streamline them down a little bit. It's on the table, as it were. So it's good stuff.
Hopefully they touch guilds. I said it before.
Oh yeah,
but I think that's
going
to be very big for Steam release. Is that, especially if I don't know what they could add to guild mission vendor to make them worth doing, but man, it should be something that every guild wants to do every week. It's just a crime.
Yeah.
That
I was shocked. There's actually two things that completely shocked me that they didn't even touch with EOD. One, no skiff races, no mount races in any of the new maps. That I was blown away that there are no adventures. It's so weird because it makes the maps just feel like a little bit off. And then two, nothing to do with guilds other than a guild hall. My thought was kind of like, why put the guild hall in there if you're not going to do anything with the guild hall, So I was really surprised that they didn't do anything with guild missions or have really any reason to, I guess, like participate in a guild. There's very little reason at all to participate in a guild.
I think that the
Very
guild
odd.
mission updates would be so good because it's genuinely also kind of like it engages people, right? Like you join a guild and then you're just in a guild chat, but you kind of like you don't really do something with these people. But then there's guild missions, and then you can join guild missions and you can meet the people in your guilds and you can feel like you're a part of it, and you can make friends and
run around with the
then
crowd.
with those friends you can do something. Like it's such a nice way to get people from like playing by themselves to like making some more friends and being a bit more social and stuff.
I don't even think they need to update the content that much. Like the races where you like transform and like have to, like, those are fine.
Yeah.
The puzzle, the jumping puzzle ones, those are like still fine. They're like, they don't need to be really that updated. Like maybe the bounties are a little bit like weak as far as mechanically, but I mean that's whatever. I think it's really just mostly a reward thing of like, why would I care? Like why would I care to do it?
What if you made guild missions daily and then you put raids, strikes, dungeons, DRMs, all that stuff in there for PvE? So that essentially there's a reason to do those daily now. And then you threw, and this might already be the case. I haven't engaged with the guild system in so long with commendations, but you made it so that you could get exotic stat selectable armor or ascended armor from doing guild missions like that.
I think one of the big reasons people did them, right, was that you could get, wasn't it like amulets or something? Ascended amulets?
Yeah, it was like the only place to get ascended earrings.
Yeah. So people would just do them for that. Because now they miss a lot of stats, and there's a lot of other ways to get them.
Yeah, it needs the vendor just needs a
Yeah.
modernization and refresh, I think. But I also agree with Sneb. Like we have there's World v World missions for guild missions, and then there's PvE. It's maybe expand the scope. Like maybe have it be for the next 6 hours, complete as many dungeons as you can, and each dungeon that you complete, gets you X amount of favor for the guild or whatever it is.
This just reminded me, actually. I guess there's kind of a third thing that really shocked me. Guild Wars 1 had the alliance system, where you earn. Well, it had the alliance system, but then it also had the system where you could contribute. Oh, what's it called? Faction. You could contribute faction, so your guild basically had points that would go up. And if your guild had the most points, you would take over a city, and your guild emblem would be there, and there was an exclusive place you could go in the city, and you could buy stuff from the merchant at a discounted rate. And this was a big deal because you'd walk around with your guild tag, and people would be like, oh, you're the guild that owns the main city in the Kurzik area, right? You're the main Kurzik guild. People use this as a big point of recruitment. People faction farmed like crazy. It was a big deal to people. Not that it was the end all be all, but it was something that made guilds matter,
Yeah.
And I just thought, with them bringing back Cantha, I wondered if they were going to introduce some sort of system where guilds would essentially be ranked. And the thing is, it's not like it was so big of a deal that if you weren't in that guild, it was a horrible thing. But it was cool and novel. So the players who really wanted to build something together, they were almost recognized for that at a higher level. And I thought that was always really neat.
Yeah. I guess you kind of have that in World versus World in a very temporary sense. You can claim objectives.
Yeah,
Kinda.
That's one thing that I think that I loved about launch or even beta World v World. In the betas, when no one had a commander tag and no one knew how to play World v World the right way, guilds actually would capture a fort and try to hold it as a guild. That was actually, I thought, super fun. I remember my friends, we had 8 people and we captured a fort and we actually tried to hold it for as long as we could against hordes of enemies. And I don't know. I thought that was what World v World was super, super fun. But it was just a disorganized mess, but it was a fun disorganized mess.
Alliances will fix that.
No,
Copium. Yeah. Also, I see that you've just got in blue text. I've seen this for a while now, but I see that you just have Condor Dusk on your camera, just there.
It's a subtle message to the other members of Condor Dusk in the chat.
Very subtle.
A lot of them are covert agents that aren't even
okay.
Well, aren't even publicly known.
Wow. Yeah, I do like the guild mission idea though. I think that sounds really cool. You could actually, because that seems like it's possible, right? You could integrate stuff like raids, dungeons, fractals into that. You could, if you wanted to, you could even make a different category, right? You could make instanced PvE category, right? In case that you didn't want to mix them together or something like that. Because I think that one issue that you have with a lot of instance content is that once you've done it, you don't want to do it again, right? Or rather, players will not want to do it again, right? You'll do your weekly clear and you log out and you log back in and do your weekly clear again. I think that's not necessarily a problem as long as the population is high enough. But because the population is relatively low, it does tend to, cause a few issues there. In terms of being able to actually find a group for this stuff. I guess having it with guild missions maybe wouldn't be as good as you think though, because it would create a lot more private groups, but it wouldn't create a lot more public groups. I guess maybe though that's okay.
That already exists.
Two different problems.
That's already a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. The goal is to get people into guilds.
It encourages people to join a community, and I don't know. You don't even have to touch the raid system. right? You don't have to touch it at all. You're just encouraging people to do the reward again if they've already done it with a guild, or you're just giving them more reason to do it, which I think is just win-win.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
And you're giving benefit to the guild potentially, depending on how the system would work, by helping players who haven't done it do it. So I think that's good.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, like, I'm sure the data would say, if we had it, that people who are in active guilds and do things with their guildmates are players that stick around the game longer and are more loyal to the game than people that aren't in a guild and just run solo and then log out. Like, I guarantee that those players are much more temporary.
Yeah, it definitely should be a system that gets a bit of love. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Lara.
Oh no, I just said I agree. No, that is like such an important thing though. Like, you know, when I used to play this game, the first 2 years or so, I played mostly by myself, and I would just log in occasionally. And I really got into the game when I found a guild. And you know, I had like people that would play every day, and people that would go like, "Hey, we're doing Arouse tonight. Do you want to join?" Like, it made such a difference. I think for player retention, especially with Steam coming up. You know, they're doing a lot of stuff right now where they're experimenting. They're like experimenting with mount rentals, right? And now they're doing this dungeon thing. They're definitely like thinking like, how can we make sure these Steam players get retained? I think having more guild stuff would definitely be a good one for them to consider. 100%.
You know what I can't wait? Speaking of Steam and dungeons.
What
the day of the Steam launch, I'm going to be hanging around outside of Ascalonian Catacombs. And I'm just going to like find people in map chat looking for dungeon groups and take them in and guide the peepos to dungeon victory. It's going to be fun.
That was unexpectedly wholesome.
Look, the whole time you were talking, I was just waiting for you to say, I'm going to like sit outside there and I'm going to sell runs to AC.
First, I'll let them feed to Kohler in AC. And then I'll inform them that we can actually skip Kohler and we don't have to fight him.
Yeah. You
and
can
then
tell
if they
people
fail enough, you will sell them the dungeon.
You can tell people that the boss is like impossible. Like Cola must be skipped. You can make people fear this entity, right? You must not fight.
Kohler, if you're not
I will
for the
personally
poll,
take care of.
No. I like that.
And yeah, we'll kill the Spider Queen by stacking in a corner. And
you don't do that.
And exploiting.
That's illegal. Yeah, you're not allowed to, you know. Corner stacking? What next? Ice bow? I mean, come on, dude. That's,
oh my gosh.
You can't do that stuff. Fiery greatsword into the wall? Doesn't even. Well, I guess it doesn't work anymore, does it? Well, you can do the third
3 into the wall.
Yeah. You can't do the fourth. You can't do the stacking the little fire patches. That's gone now. You can't do ice. You can't do line casting. Ice bow line casting is gone. The line casting exploit, my friends.
The meta is a lie.
You know what's really sad is that there's quite a lot of people who will watch this and will not understand that reference. And I'm not going to explain
I didn't understand the reference.
Yeah, Sneb doesn't even know. Sneb does not know the legend of Nemesis.
No loss.
I feel old now. Just old.
Yeah. We're all old here. Feels bad. Speaking of this kind of topic, you know, we're kind of getting into this here a little bit. Sneb.
Teapot.
What's going on recently? I'm seeing you play StarCraft 2. You keep harassing me to play 2v2 like for 10 hours a day, right?
Yeah, like what's going on in the game? I wake up and I'm like, I try to get Teapot to play StarCraft 2 with me. Then he ignores my message, so I poke him like a few hours later. I'm like, please play StarCraft 2 with me. Please carry me in the 2v2s. I don't know what I'm doing. And eventually at like 6 a.m. his time, he relents and we play for 4 hours until we're both psychologically broken because we have no sleep. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of StarCraft and Warcraft 3 and Diablo 2 Resurrected. That's been pretty fun, actually. Just been playing like some other games. Lately, I found myself to be like a little burned out on Guild Wars 2. I still think the game is really good and I have a lot of fun. but I'm just not playing as much because I feel like I hit like a certain point in playtime, and then I go, not really having as much fun as the past 4 hours or whatever. So I'm gonna just stop. Then I'll go play something else. Whereas before, I could just feast on the Guild Wars 2, you know, but it's just not quite like that right now. I don't know that the game really has anything to do with it. I think it's mostly just a preference thing. I do think the last debate video kind of mentally broke me in the comments. And I don't know. This sounds really depressing, but I don't mean it to. But after reading a lot of those comments, I feel like I feel like I don't belong. Like I feel like I don't
Ooh.
belong in the community because I'm basically saying, hey, like these puzzles and these challenges, like that's part of what makes the game great. I know they're hard, but we can do it. And the pushback, at least the way that I'm interpreting it, is no, we can't. And that just goes so against like what I stand for and believe just as a human that I have a really hard time engaging in that conversation. And anytime I engage with it, people seem to get very upset. And so I've just been thinking, man, like maybe I should go play some other games for a while and not think about this. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
I feel like and this is like I mean you definitely know this, but I feel like the thing here as well is that there's just so many different kinds of people. There's probably a lot of people who like sort of agree with you, but they're not the ones posting comments, right? So if you're reading the comment section, you'll probably get a lot of pushback. But there's probably a lot of people that do think the way you do, I feel.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt, but here's the thing that I think is getting me to feel that like sense of not belonging. I actually think it's the majority of people in Guild Wars 2 that think that way or that agree with that. That's why we have things like the Suwon nerf happen, is because I think that most people agree that things shouldn't be very difficult, that we shouldn't have a lot of challenging content. And you know what? That's totally fine. Like that's a completely valid way to play. And I don't discount that opinion, but that's not the way that I like to engage with the game. And so as that opinion grows louder and louder and louder, and as the game shifts more and more and more towards that style of content, like I'm under the impression that they may never add something like Suwon again. And Suwon, the first week of End of Dragons was the best time I have ever had playing Guild Wars 2. And so thinking that they're going to not recreate that sort of like core memory with Guild Wars 2 is really sad to me because I think it was just so good. It was so much fun. And over time, I feel like it's been sort of diluted because of the changes they've made. And so I look at this and I go, well, I'm the minority here. Like I am a strong minority and like people just don't agree with this. This just isn't going to happen. I'm fighting a losing battle. Like I can create raid statics and create a community where we're helping people, have a guild full of people that are trying to help others and do all these things. But at some point, I feel like the Zerg rush is winning, that I'm overwhelmed by roaches. and I didn't macro hard enough.
Wait, that's a very Sneb. I don't want to. It's too late now, but you know you've just described like you've just described you've just described players as roaches.
Well, roaches are a really strong.
You know, that's odd coming from a guy who is accused of being a fascist in said comments.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the whole calling the underclass roaches is a very fascist thing. So you're playing right into their hands.
So for those that don't know, I made a StarCraft illusion. Roaches are like a unit that are actually like really strong in StarCraft. Yeah, sure. So
yeah, okay. You're trying to cover for it now, Sneb. I do see that. I see that you're trying to recover from this, but it's too late.
It wouldn't matter. Trying to backpedal it. It wouldn't matter what I said; they'd still come after me. So that's just kind of how I've been feeling lately. I also don't feel like there are really any goals that I have in the game anymore, other than helping people with their goals. So I enjoy doing that, but I hit a limit where I'm like, okay, I've done a lot of this now, and then I just am not having fun with it anymore. So I enjoy like helping people get into groups and stuff, and I enjoy doing the work on like helping people get into groups and find teammates and like seeing their progression. I enjoy that more than me playing the raid, which is really weird because that was not the case for a long time. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird place to be. I think I still like the game and everything. I'm not mad at the game or the devs or
Sneb
anything.
hates Guild Wars too.
So yeah, I just I don't know. I think I'm gonna just do some exploring and play some other games so that I can rekindle that.
There's something you said before the stream, and I'm super interested in exploring it a bit. You said, because I think this is actually a really common sentiment, to be clear, actually, what I'm about to talk about. And I get it, but I think we should figure out what's actually going on here. Look, we're hyping it up. You said that you find raids, or rather you found raids to be a lot more exciting than strike missions. And that strikes they're not the same, right? They aren't the same as raids, despite being better designed in a lot of ways, right?
Oh
despite
yeah, they're 100% like better encounters.
Yeah, better encounters, right? And I think a lot of players actually feel that way. I think a lot of endgame players, hardcore players, are experiencing a similar sentiment towards this content. And I think it's interesting to think about why. Why do you think that is?
That's a really good question. I've tried really hard to figure out a way to analyze why that is. I don't know. I have a couple thoughts and we'll just like see where they go. I find strike missions to be a little bit longer and a little bit more. How do you say this? One player can't have as much of an impact in the current balance and with the way that mechanics work in strikes. There are things that are really punishing if one player doesn't do it, but it's not like one player can save the day, right? Whereas in raids, I can be playing one thing and doing like 3 of the mechanics. And so there's like, I don't know. It's harder to get people going. It's harder to consistently clear the strikes and they take longer. Mm-hmm. The normal mode strikes are so straightforward that it doesn't, and there's no timer. So they don't really, there's something missing with those, right? It's pretty hard to lose for the most part in the normal mode strikes. Harvest Temple is pretty good though. Then the CMs are so punishing, some of them, that it's really hard to just take people in there. Where, yeah, I feel like I'm still not doing a good job of articulating this. It's just, they're just longer. They're just longer and it's like the same reward and you have more opportunity to fail and one person can't like save you. KO CM, for example, if one person is just not paying attention and they run into that orange circle and they ricochet and they die, like that's a huge loss, right? Now that's incredible encounter design. But what this means is that if you have like 2 or 3 people in the group that are constantly triggering these mechanics, it's really hard to get the group to complete it, which is fine. But when you do complete it, you just got the same rewards as if you had completed Mersad Overseer, which takes you 50 seconds.
Yeah, I feel you with this one. I really like the strike CMs. I think every single one so far has been one of like most fun fights in the game. But just because like sort of the effort required is actually a bit higher than in raids. And the rewards aren't that much better. It feels like just it feels like kind of painful, you know, and you're doing kiting sim and it's really fun, and then you spend like hours and hours grinding it and then get free gold at the end. It's kind of I know. I do think that the content itself is so good though, but you're also right. Like, for example, kiting sim is so long. Like, I think someone was joking that you can almost complete like Wing 2 in less time.
Yeah, that's true. That is true, actually. Yeah, that is true.
I feel like It's such a shame though, because they're such fun encounters, but there's not as many people that even want to do them. We were talking about this earlier, but I think a lot of people kind of want to get their first clear, and then they can say I did it, and then they don't have as much motivation to keep doing it. There's not as much motivation to keep repeating it. I feel. To me, I feel like they should just make Heining just a lot of goal, make it 6 or 7 goal because it's long and it's really hard. But I'm not even sure if that would fix it. But I feel your sentiment. It's also harder to access, right? Like sometimes with raids, I'm just like, hey everyone, let's go. We'll just get this going. But for example, Heining CM is at such a difficulty level that it makes it a lot harder to form a group and teach everyone all the mechanics. So just a lot more effort, and the rewards don't really feel like they measure up for the amount of time you put in. So people aren't as motivated to keep doing it, which is sad because it is literally my favorite fight in the game right now.
Do you think it's because the rewards are boring? Because Sneb, you've been playing Diablo. And Nike, you're a big Path of Exile aficionado, and also Guild Wars 1, actually, which I think did this quite well with the excitement of drops, right? Do you think that this is actually the result of a really big systemic issue in the Guild Wars 2 reward structure, that the rewards are boring? And if that's the case, what is it about games like Path of Exile, Diablo, and Guild Wars 1? Why are the rewards exciting, right? And I think looking at Guild Wars 1 in particular would be super interesting from your perspective, Nike, because of course that game is horizontal as well. Because I've had this argument on stream, and people immediately say, well, the loot will always be boring in Guild Wars 2 because it's horizontal, right? But that isn't always the case, is it? I don't think so. There's some ways you can do it, but yeah, I'd be super curious what your take on that would be.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Guild Wars 1 gets away with it is they have cosmetic only rewards, but you can't just buy them from currency for the vendor. It is strict RNG. And so when you do it and we get it, it feels so damn good. When you finish Fissure of Woe and you get the Obsidian Edge sword to drop, it feels really damn good. And there's almost nothing comparable to that. The only time I ever felt really happy about getting a drop in Guild Wars 2, on that level, was when Wing 5 was new and I got the Doom Scythe as a drop. I was like, oh, that is sweet, because it was a really sick skin for Guild Wars 2 standards. And I was pretty happy to get it as a drop, so it felt good. But also if I just waited a week, I would have had enough currency to just buy it from the vendor. So it wasn't that takes away some of the fun of the drop, and it's not great. But yeah, and PoE is even Guild Wars 1 by Diablo or PoE standards has a boring loot system, an incredibly boring loot system. I remember when Guild Wars 1 came out, all of my Diablo 2 friends were like, oh, I played it for 10 minutes, but the loot is boring in that game, so I stopped playing. And so those games are even Guild Wars 1 has a kind of vanilla boring-y loot system. And I mean, obviously there's no way to change that in Guild Wars 2. None at all. But yeah, and I think the only thing is the loot has to have either insane value or insane prestige. And by having it available from a vendor for tokens that you get from it, there's zero prestige.
And they won't give it value either, because they don't want harder content to be more rewarding. That's the way it seems to be anyway, right? So they're in a bit of a tough spot then. You would say this is almost like a semi-unsolvable issue then. That something's going to have to budge on their philosophy to an extent. The actual philosophy of ArenaNet might have to, if they want to fix this, they might have to adjust their philosophy a bit.
Well, yeah, the other thing too is you can have prestige in the game. The act of killing the boss itself could be prestigious if you say, and they would never do this, but you give a title to the first 1,000 accounts that kill the boss. That would be something that would motivate people incredibly to do the content, and to to get it done. And I think that would have a huge prestige. And like maybe there'd be some people that would be like, well, I'm just going to do it on 5 different accounts, and screw you guys. But I think that's a very small problem. The community is small enough to where 1,000 people will probably cover everyone who's a serious raider anyway. I don't know. Things like that are help put prestige in the game. And yes, that's not something that's going to help with making people want to do it every week. But I don't think that you can have that every week push unless you have something like Legendary Insights that require you to need to do it every week from a financial perspective, and not just gold. Like gold is not enough. You can make it 50 gold for killing KOCM, and people would still take a week off if they couldn't find a good group. They wouldn't care. But if there was a thing where it was like, a time gated thing where it's like you have to have this many LI and you need 200 of the LI and you can only get 4 per week, the penalty for missing a week is huge. You're going to be a week behind everyone else getting the legendary whatever at the end of the thing. So I don't know. They have to build the incentive system to make you want to farm it every week in order to do that. They can't just let people like come play 1 week, skip the next week, because then you get into the habit of not doing it, and then you'll stop doing it.
I actually think that you were talking about this title. I think the title they have right now is already actually pretty like success on their parts. I know a lot of people that are like, I want to get that title from doing kind NCM, that want to get the great equalizer, and like they're grinding it out and just going for it over and over. It's just that, yeah, like once you get it, there's not that much left. I really like what you're saying though about LI and stuff. I would love if there was like a legendary ring you could get or something, and then every time you do a strike CM, you get a token, and then you need to do like 100 strike CMs, and then you can get the legendary ring. I feel like that's kind of the thing that's maybe missing a bit, because they did that with Heart of Thorns race, with like legendary armor, and the Puffire race at like Coalescence and stuff, but strike CMs are kind of missing like a long-term goal to work towards. I think that the titles are really smart with getting people to play it the first time, but it feels like that long-term thing might have to be a
The
thing.
funniest part is they don't even have to tell us what it's for. They could add a token to every strike CM, like a token that says
ooh, mystery.
End of Dragons. They could not even know what it's for.
End of Dragons token. They don't even have to know what it's for. but it's time gated, and you can only get 4 of them a week. And they're not going to tell you what it's for. They're not going to tell you how many you're going to need. They just have to say, you better be collecting them every week, or else you're going to feel bad if you don't. And then people will do it. People will fucking do it for years. People will be on the hook forever.
And then one day you put the tokens into the gem store, and it unlocks your ability to purchase more mount skins. Great. But I wanted to add onto what Lara was saying there, because I think that if you put I think putting the legendary ring is a good idea. I would add though that if they put a legendary ring that has like some unique aesthetic about it, some effect or whatever, I wish that they had a way to separate the effect and the ring, because I don't need the ring. But the effect would be something I'd be interested in going after, right? Just as if it were an infusion or something. But like I don't want to spend all of the gold I have on my account to get the ring when I don't actually need the utility of the ring. I only want the cool effect of the ring. So I wish it would give you the option. Does anybody else feel like that?
I feel like this is a gold thing though, and they want you to spend that gold to get the cool effects, I'm not sure.
What I'm saying is, yes, it should still be a bunch of gold to get the effect, but it shouldn't be as much as getting the legendary ring. Like I wish that they were separate. Even if it was like 500 gold.
They have it the other way around, actually, weirdly enough. In PvP, you can get legendary armor and if you want the effect, you have to pay a bit more. Same in World versus World. They have it so you want it the other way around? So you don't get
the other way around.
You
Well,
don't
I mean,
get
I'd
the
want it both,
legendary. But
I guess. I don't know.
wait, how would that? I think that wouldn't work with trinkets, would it? That would only work with armor, no? Because you can't wardrobe your rings.
What I'm saying is that doesn't currently exist, but it would be cool if it did, because if they add a ring, the ring isn't actually something. I don't really care about the ring, like the utility of the ring, because I have the legendary ring. And I think other people might feel similarly, or there's always going to be one ring that's easier to get, right?
Yeah.
And so if that exists, then it actually isn't a great motivation to get the ring. But perhaps if there's a cool effect with the ring, people would want to go for the effect. So if there was a way to separate that so that you can go for either the ring or, the effect, then that would be something that would be more alluring than just the ring.
Man, so Path of Exile in the last couple patches has leveled up their microtransaction game to an insane degree. And I'm not saying that ArenaNet should copy this for microtransactions, but some of the ideas would be great, in-game rewards. There's a microtransaction in PoE where it's a character effect where the higher your strength stat is, the bigger your character gets. The more muscle bound they look.
Oh.
And there's one where your character's brain is visible on top of their head, and the more intelligence they have, the brain gets bigger. And it has a galaxy brain effect. It's crazy. But why not have things like that in Guild Wars 2? Like a thing that you can get from Strike CMs that
upgrades the more you clear it.
You get even make it simple, when you have 5 might, your character has a sort of look, and then as you get more stacks of might, your character gets bigger or has a fire effect that gets brighter the more might you have. There's tons of things that they could do like that, dynamic infusions and stuff that scale with game state. That would be really, really cool, I think.
Even if it was an emote, because they did that in Guild Wars 1, right? Your PvP rank. I mean, they'd have that in Guild Wars 2 as well, but it's kind of irrelevant. Well, maybe the emote isn't the best idea then, because people don't value that as much as they did in prior games.
It was mini pets, right? Mini pets in Guild Wars 1 were very coveted. In Guild Wars 2, they're worthless. No one cares.
I think the reason for that is because of the scarcity. You can just buy mini pets with gems, right? And so there are a couple of mini pets that are pretty reasonably scarce. So those maybe have more prestige, but otherwise people don't care. But yeah, I don't know. That might work.
Yeah, I think it just has to be some long-term thing. Even if it's not an item or an infusion or something, fractal gold as a title motivates people to do fractals every day. Even when they've done it so many times and they can do the fractals in their sleep, they're just going because they want to get fractal goals. So something like that, just a long-term thing you can work towards. I don't even think it matters that much what it is. If it's a title or something, just something that tells people yo, if you do this a lot, you'll get something at the end.
Yeah, I think that. I don't like the fractal god in that it gives a gameplay advantage. I think that's counterproductive to raids.
Yeah, for sure.
But someone suggested in chat, you have an armor piece or something, or a ring infusion that drops from KOCM, and every time you kill it, it adds a charge to the ring, and every 10 kills, the effect gets brighter up until 100 kills. It's kill proof, people would complain, but that's the good kind of kill proof, something that makes your character look awesome. Unfakeable. Your character looks awesome. It's an actual thing that you can have pride in, and then and then guess what? There'll be a bunch of different bosses, and you could have a bunch of different effects. I don't know, people would be mad about visual bloat. I don't care. They have to any way that they can add prestige in, they have to try to do it because they don't have anything else. They can't put more gold rewards into the game. They can't do it. It's valueless.
Sneb, like this discussion that's going on now, does some of this stuff resonate with you a little bit? Would this make you
This
more
would
interested
inspire
in the
me
game?
to. This would give me a goal, right? Like right now, there is no goal.
Mhm.
I guess I shouldn't say that. There are things that I could do, but not anything that really captures the kind of content that I enjoy playing, which is the 10-person content like strikes and raids. They don't have. I have every skin in raids from a drop now. I've never bought a skin in raids. I have all of them. I got the Doom chair. I've got infusions. I've got everything. I don't need any of the skins. I don't even use any of the skins. So none of that matters to me. In strikes, I have all the rewards you can get from the IBS strikes, and I don't have those like ascended skins, but those don't really resonate with me. So I could go after something like Fractal God. I don't have that, by the way, because I just haven't ever really gotten into fractals. But that just puts me out of the content that I enjoy playing. If there was something that kept me going, like as a big long-term goal, like a Fractal God, right? Because Fractal God is super long-term for fractals. If they had something like that for the new strikes, I think I'd engage with that a lot more. I don't know if I'd want weekly caps on that though, because I think that I would just find that to be like so ridiculously onerous to go after that I wouldn't. I don't know. I'd probably just like do the weekly and then be done. But if there was like a you can just go at it a lot, I think that would make me want to do it more.
Whoa.
But Whoa.
Look at this comment, Sneb. Fractal
What?
God demotivates me to do tier 4 fractals. And I go for tier 1 because the reward effort ratio is way better.
Hell yeah.
What do you mean by this?
I think they got it backwards.
Yeah, I feel like this is the opposite. This comment makes no sense, but I've seen it and I have to read it.
I actually usually will encourage players to completely skip tier 1 altogether and learn tier 4s immediately. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of, so do you think they'll revamp fractals for the new player experience for Steam? Any fractal tweet?
Okay, this is my big hope. Total removal of agony resistance and a rework of the infusion system. And this would actually, I think this would really help with rewards too, because that you could have this kind of streamlined reward structure for endgame content. Like, you just, imagine if every strike had like my ultimate dream would be untradeable infusions. They would never do this because it's against the philosophy of ArenaNet or whatever, but I wish that at the very least you couldn't sell them on the TP, right? I actually really dislike this about raids, is that you can sell ghostly infusions, you can sell peerless infusions. I am okay with being able to buy them for shards, but the fact that you can have a ghostly infusion or a peerless infusion without ever having set foot in a raid, like, oh god, I think it's really silly, right? Like it means that it's the reward becomes meaningless, right? Like it's a totally meaningless, pointless reward, which I think really sucks.
Imagine if they did have one untradeable infusion that they just gave you the first time that you did a strike mission, and it was called like Orion's Glow or something.
Oh,
and then like Nike said,
that. Easy business.
I mean, who cares? Like they're gonna do that no matter what, right?
Make a lot of money.
So imagine if as you did more and more strikes, like it just got, like Nike said, like it got brighter and brighter, or it like had different effects at certain levels. And it was completely 100% aesthetic. Everyone got it. But it just went up as you completed strike missions. That would be really cool and be something that I'd be after. But you're right. They would never do that because then players would be scrambling to get into strikes to get that glow. But people would get really upset that doing the CMs would give you more points or something toward it. Yeah.
I think one counterpoint, like that kind of argues against what I'm suggesting for prestige, is like there is a limit to how much prestige ArenaNet can attach to anything, because in the end, nothing's that hard. Like KOCM pretty hard, but people still killed it day one, you know? So it's not like there is a limit to the prestige. Winning ERP3 is 1,000 times more prestigious than being world's 5th KOCM. Like 10,000 times more prestigious. I mean, who even was world's 5th KOCM? Who's world's 2nd KOCM? Who knows? No one knows. But winning the ERP tournament, way more prestigious. So like there is like, if prestige is your motivator, like there's a definite limit to what ArenaNet can do to motivate you. But I mean, short of like having like world's first only titles like in the game, you know, like
that would be pretty sick.
Yeah, but they are very.
I think that they could maybe do this. The furthest I could see them going with this is you know, like in Guild Wars 1, how whenever, you know, you would win a battle in the Hall of Heroes, it would announce that, like, which guild has done that. I could see them, best case scenario, ultimate as far as they would go, is there would be, like, an announcement in chat or something like that, or even a post on their web. No, they would never do that, actually. It may be an announcement in-game on when the first guild clears a piece of content.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Or when, like a bit like the monthlies, right? When you win the monthly AT, you get a statue of your character in the PvP lobby. I could see them adding, maybe, best case scenario, like statues for the first people to kill it, right? Maybe. That would be pretty cool. I think people would really go for that. Or you could even have, I mean, look, dare I say it, fractal leaderboards, strike mission at leaderboards, right? So whoever gets the fastest clears, right? Whoever gets the, you know, the earliest kills, right, on release, right? All that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Wasn't fractal leaderboards going to be a thing at some point?
We can talk about that, but we don't talk about that here, Lara. Okay, that got Nike permabanned from the Guild Wars 2 Twitch channel. That's true, by the way. That actually did happen.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I vaguely remember this, but I will not.
I mean, all I asked was leaderboards when, and I got permabanned. Pretty good.
I think adding leaderboards would actually be quite interesting, right? I think that it can be very motivating to even players that aren't necessarily going for that top tier. People, you know, want to be top 100 in PvP, right? They want to be top 50. They want to be top 25, right? I think that sort of stuff in PvP is effective, actually, is motivating. So I think having that in PvE would be good. The problem is, I think it would be quite a lot of work for them to make it that way. You'd almost have to add some kind of title for it. You'd have to add something. I'm not sure if just having your name on the leaderboard is good enough. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, there's a couple things. Like ArenaNet would have to get really rapid at handling exploits.
Oh yeah, true.
Right.
A lot of the Guild Wars 1, like not missions, what do they call them? Like challenges where they have the leaderboards. Like they're all exploitable now. Where like they're all exploitable, so the leaderboards become meaningless. So you have to, like, as people figure out the exploit and start being able to finish the fractal in 15 seconds, you have to be quick about fixing it, and that might be more of a commitment than ArenaNet wants to ever make. But I agree, like ArenaNet invented fractals, and at the time that they came out with them, they were like the best thing, like sort of in the MMO dungeon, like the dungeon genre of MMOs. And then Mythic Plus came out and was like, okay, as Blizzard often does, we're going to take your idea, iterate on it, and make it better. And rather than ArenaNet going, well, actually that was just our version 1. Now we're going to show you our iteration, and it's going to be even better than Mythic Plus. ArenaNet's just like, what? We forget about that. We don't know that this is even a game mode. We're moving on to bigger and better things, like, but they don't. So, like, they should really go over the top and turn fractals into an even better version of Mythic Plus. Like, take Mythic Plus, like, look at what Blizzard is doing with Mythic Plus. Go, what are the pain points? Fix all of them, and then re-release it as fractals, like and as a Fractal revamp and make everyone super happy.
So what is Mythic Plus like doing that's better than Fractals? Like, I don't play WoW. I'm actually kind of curious. Like, what do they have leaderboards in Mythic Plus?
They do, and there's
They have
endless
ratings.
progression. Yeah, endless
Wow.
progression, and players get rated, and the rewards actually get better as the better you are, like, and the further you can go. Yeah, it's ridiculously good. The only, like, the biggest problem from what I understand about Mythic Plus is that they have like their version of instabilities, and some of them can be so cancerously unfun that people just skip playing the entire week that the instabilities are on there. They're like worse than the worst instabilities in Guild Wars 2 Fractals.
That's good.
So, like, I feel like, and the thing is, the way that the mobs and stuff and the difficulty scales in Mythic Plus, you don't even need the instabilities to make them hard. So, yeah. But they could fix it. They could take all the pain points of Mythic Plus and fix it and make Fractals the best thing in any MMO. Easily.
I think the problem with that, well, right, I'm gonna ruin this. I think that in order for them to do this, wouldn't they actually have to release Fractals?
Like new Fractals? Yeah, they would actually have to commit to that.
But
now that strikes are an unmitigated failure, and abandoning that, they will have bandwidth for Fractals.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think strikes are completely considered a mistake. That
really,
maybe not with everybody at ArenaNet, but it's yeah.
What gives you that impression?
No one plays them. More people play Raid. More people kill Veil Guardian every week than do any of the new strikes that are brand new. Like,
wow,
they're trash.
Wait, really? Wait, did you? Is that like from Wingman? Is that from like Wingman or from Efficiency or something?
I forget where I saw that, but yeah, they're just completely. I mean, it's kind of dead content, but
I don't know. Like, if you have the data to back that up, I'd be interested, but I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think a lot of people play strikes. I will say, anecdotally, it feels kind of like you're telling the truth, because whenever I look at the LFG, I rarely see stuff in the strike LFG, which is odd. Maybe that's because the groups fill fast, or I don't know. I just almost never see anything there. But I almost never see anything in the raid LFG either. So people have got to be doing something, right?
I am actually
not really.
I'm very positive about the EOD strikes. I think they're just the best thing about EOD.
I mean, really like them as content. They're fun. I enjoy playing them. But
I feel like the normal mode gets played by people.
They cannot be something that, like, if ArenaNet's whole thing was we abandoned raids because, only 5% of the game population is playing raids, so we can't justify developing them. Like, what's the number for these EOD strikes? Like, what's the success number? I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's higher. Like, just like Kaineng being like a part of getting the turtle and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if more people
I think we saw something on efficiency, like 12% of players have done Kaineng normal mode once, at least once.
That does sound low.
That's not great for something that you had to do to get the turtle.
Yeah,
like,
I know. I feel
because they couldn't get past 2-1, right?
Well, I mean, if you look at it, like, what was it, like something like 30% of accounts on efficiency? 30% of accounts on efficiency have beaten EOD story, and then 14.6 have done Kaineng normal.
0.78% have done the CM. That is quite prestigious if you think about it, right? That's not a lot.
I mean, if you have the Great Equalizer, that's a very prestigious title. In terms of,
God,
separating you.
That's insane. I didn't realize. But
you know what? Low. As prestigious as that title is, again, I'll go back to it. The Snowcrow's Guild tag is more prestigious than that title. Like, in terms of, like, if people see you with that title, they might go, "Oh, that's a guy who plays strikes." But if they see you with, like, the Snowcrow's Guild tag, they're gonna go, "Oh, that's one of the better players in the game." Like, it's just there's a limit to the prestige that ArenaNet can bestow on you. But yeah, only 50% of people less than 50% of people have their turtle that they finished EOD story, didn't get and didn't finish unlocking the turtle. Oh, painful.
The thing is though, like I personally like I'm gonna be very positive here, but I feel like strikes are just like I personally think they nailed it. Like just finally having two different difficulty settings and stuff. I'm not even sure what ArenaNet could do to like increase that play rate. Like they've made this version that is very, very accessible. They've made the CM version. Again, I think that needs a bit more long-term reward stuff going on there because I don't know. I'm very surprised that these numbers are so low. I feel like normal mode strikes kind of hit everything they need to hit. Like they're well designed. They're not too difficult. Most people can get into them. I'm very surprised that the numbers
I'm actually
seem like
not
relatively
surprised.
low.
But this is gonna sound weird. I'm not surprised, but I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree. They're great content.
I'm
they're
not
super
surprised.
fun and well designed. But yeah, like
I don't get it. That's a
No,
weird
I'm
thing.
not surprised, and this is why. And I tell me if you think I'm way off base here, but I think the actual reason why they're not being done is because no one had done that content, that kind of content before.
Right.
People just never did raids because there was no beginner mode. IBS strikes came out and people did them for a while, but they weren't updated really. Right? They didn't fix the bugs. And so what we're seeing is actually just you had an attrition of the player base that did that content, and now they're reintroducing it. They're adding it more at a cadence, right? This is in my opinion the reason that they're actually separating these CMs is so that it gives the illusion that you're getting more strike content all the time. So that when the new strike comes out, it feels like you've been getting new strike content all the time. This keeps the content alive. The problem with a lot of things in the game, especially the end game stuff, is when you go 3 years without a raid, yeah, a lot of people are just going to leave if they like raids. If you go a year and a bit without a strike mission or really any meaningful updates to strike, yeah, a lot of people just are going to forget about that content. It's not that the content isn't good. It's just that it wasn't made a habit by players. People just didn't really engage with that enough. And now we're trying to create the habit. So it's harder to create the habit now because you have to really reintroduce people to this thing. And it's essentially like they just completely redid it from what IBS was anyway. So it's going to take time, I think. Really solid. They need maybe a few tweaks with rewards and stuff. But it sounds like cyclical and kind of stupid, but people just don't do them because they didn't do them before. It's not a habit.
Yeah. And changing behavior is pretty difficult. I think it will be really interesting to see what the play rates look like then after Steam, right?
Yeah, I think
because that means there's going to be loads of players who don't have these habits. Do we think
the idea is to get people into that? You're funneling them.
Just random idea here, because the way we're talking about this is interesting. Do we think that a lot of the people who play Guild Wars 2 right now, specifically players who kind of play the end game, are the same players that have been doing it for years?
I mean, there's new blood. But...
I mean, do we think... Well, because we're saying that, okay, people don't do this because they don't do this. And I think that actually is a really good point. I think that players don't do stuff because that's not exactly right? They just don't do it because they've never done it. They don't do it because they don't do it. And that's the only reason they don't do it. And maybe there's a bunch of like misinformation being thrown around all over the place. Do we think that like the players are just the same players just over and over again?
Yeah. Think about that. I mean, I'm offering some anecdotal evidence, so I want to acknowledge that first. But I mean, I have the Skane gang, and we have 28 statics now. There are people that really want to learn how to raid and get into this endgame content. I get messages all the time. I really want to try this, but I can't find a group. No one on the LFG will accept me. There are no groups on the LFG when I play. What am I supposed to do? People don't do it because it's so hard to get into a group. That they don't do it because they don't do it. And all of the new players sit there and they all look at the empty LFG collectively and think, there are no groups. I guess no one does this. And then they go and they enjoy the other parts of the game that are really good. And so really what's going on is this lack of participation is fueling more lack of participation. Because the harder it is to jump in and do something, the less likely people are to do it. When it comes to like a good real world example is sales. If you make the sale process terrible, like it's really hard to buy something, like you put it in your shopping cart and you have to like navigate like a million buttons, people fall off. They won't buy. They'll leave it in the cart because you're just adding more and more trouble for them. Same thing with the game, right? The more layers and steps required to participate in the content, the less likely it is to be done. This is why open world is so popular in Guild Wars 2, because you just go, right? You just show up and you're there and that's it. And this is part of the reason why people are so opposed to Suwon, is because it's not just show up and get it done. There's like steps required. The more steps you put in place, the more barriers there are, the less likely people are to participate. And the less likely people are to participate, the more illusion that no one participates. So yeah, I think it's a big problem. So the question then becomes, how do you get people in there, right? How do you give this appearance that people are participating in this? Because there are a lot of people doing strikes and raids, but they're the people that have always done them, and they just gave up on the LFG, at least on NA. They gave up on the LFG completely, and they only do them in these private squads, or they use external LFG resources, Raid Academy, or like Scan Gang Discord, the Hardstuck Discord. They group up together, and they never even go in the LFG. So when all the new players go, the new player will either engage with a community and find that immediately, or think that it doesn't exist. And that dichotomy is really bad because you have one person who's like, oh yeah, like why don't more people do this? Like this is super fun, and like these people showed me how to do it, and I'm having a good time, and like this is kind of challenging and interesting. Why is there nothing on the LFG? And then you have people that are like, I guess this just isn't a thing people do. Back to open world.
Yeah, here's the thing though. I feel like the normal mode strikes are actually much more accessible on LFG. Like every time I go and look on LFG, this is both on EU and NA, I see these like everyone welcome groups. But I think you might be right. I think a lot of people already like looked at the LFG in the past and kind of went like, oh yeah, I don't have 1,000 LI, right? So I think a lot of people don't even realize that this is a thing. I
There's
think a lot of
consumer
people,
psychology
yeah.
at play here too. Like when you go to a gas station, have you ever noticed how it's like always stocked? Like how everything always appears that it's really, really stocked.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that, because then everything, you're more likely to buy something. If you walk in and it's desolate, you feel like you're getting like the worst thing.
Yeah,
right?
You don't want to go to a restaurant and you're the only customer at the restaurant, because then it makes you think like, what don't I know
Yeah, should
about
other
this
people
place?
not like this restaurant? No, like we laugh at that, but that's
No, it's
actually
true.
the psychology
It's true.
that's going
it's
on,
true.
right?
Oh, I completely agree. No. It's just amusing, right? It's funny, but it's definitely true.
Yeah. So with strike missions in the LFG, when you go to the LFG and you see no one in the LFG, or you see only one group and it says everyone welcome, you're going to, in the back of your head, think, why is it that there's only one group? You might not even have like this cognition, right? But subconsciously, you're like, okay, like this is something that people don't do. If you go and it's full of groups and there's like 7 or 8 groups looking for people at the same time, you're like, okay, like this is something that people do. But this is a huge issue that we suffer with in the community, because it's this what's the term for this? You need one to occur. You need both to occur at the same time. You need groups so that people will join, but you need people to join so that there will be groups. So like, how do you get both to happen at the same time so that you can get the momentum going?
They tried to do that with the public strikes and the public DRMs. Like, I think they took like a few footsteps in that direction to get people used to doing it, but as always, the implementation needed another iteration or two, and they just had already moved on to other things and they never iterated on it, and thus the public modes became a disaster. So I don't know. The solution would have been to go, okay, here's the problems. Here's a list of the problems with the public group finder. Let's fix them and do an iteration and make it better and better and better until you have something functional.
Yeah.
I didn't.
No, I do think that you're right here, and in this case, the players have fixed it, right? And that's really bad, because I think what Sneb was saying here about external communities, it has utterly taken over Guild Wars 2, right? All the experienced raiders won't use the LFG because it's just not a particularly good experience for them, right? And this then makes it worse, right? It makes it worse and worse and worse. Like, people, go like, dude, I'm not going near that. And, well, there's a reason why people do this, by the way. I actually don't want to have this conversation today. I think look, okay, I want to keep this tea time under 4 hours, okay? So we don't want to go too hard on this. We can talk about this a little bit. But the big problem is that there's no way to actually tell if people are telling the truth, right? In the raid LFG, if I make my weekly raid clear group and I say I want to do challenge modes on Wing 4, be experienced, it's not just likely that I'm going to get someone who doesn't know what they're doing. I'm almost guaranteed to get someone who doesn't know what they're doing. And there's almost nothing I can do about that in the LFG. And now let's take that information. So I know that that's almost certainly going to happen in the LFG. And now let's add on some other factors. I've come home from a hard day's work, right? I'm tired. I just want to play my video game, right? I've only got a few hours a day to play, right? I'm a busy guy, okay? Can't be playing Guild Wars 2 all day, okay? What's going on there? And then if you add those factors, you would have to be insane to use the LFG, like legitimately a lunatic, a maniac to engage in this system, because you have to trust people who are almost certainly going to lie to you, right? And that's not fun. It's very frustrating, right? And it's what causes people to completely retreat from the game. And it's a really big backfire, right? This whole, we're Guild Wars 2. We won't let you gear check people. We don't let any of that elitist stuff. It's ironically created one of the most, not elitist, but separated communities in any MMO. In fact, definitely in any MMO. There's nothing like this in any other game. There's not this level of disconnect, right, from the in-game systems to the out-of-game systems. And it's entirely because ArenaNet don't let players differentiate between each other in terms of their skills and set expectations. The lack of ability to do that in any meaningful way in the game, I don't want to say this, but it almost makes the LFG a non-starter, like DOA.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, the fact that you can't control who you're getting in your group unless you use an external tool like a Discord, right? Which is why stuff like the Skane Gang does so well. It's why people use Hardstuck LFG, because you can set expectations there and you can actually differentiate between people. That's why people use it. And that's why people won't use the LFG, because all you're doing is wasting your time and making your experience worse, right? If you have limited hours in the day, why would you engage in a system where people are going to lie to you and you can't stop them?
And it goes back to that same psychological phenomena, right? If it's really difficult to access or it feels like nobody's doing it, then you're gonna have a problem. So when it comes to using the LFG, if people are going to lie to you, if you have this idea that you're going to pull an expired piece of food off of the shelf, people are just going to avoid going to that store. They're just not going to do it. They're going to be like, okay, well, that's the place I bought the expired food from. I'm not doing that again. And if they give it another shot and they get expired food again and again and again and again and again, they're just not going to engage with the system. It's not going to work. So that 100%, you're totally right. People are always going to use the system that forces people to tell the truth. Otherwise, they're just taking a risk every time.
It's weird. Like, somehow I feel like in Fractals, this issue is less pronounced. Because, like, Fractals has got tiers, and you only unlock, like, the higher LFGs after you've done it for a bit. Like, you can't actually, like, go into tier 4 LFG after you've, like, completed tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So I feel like when I do join a fractal LFG, it's pretty much always like super smooth.
Yeah,
It's
and the fractal pugs skip anything that might be remotely challenging.
that is true.
If CM 100 comes up in the rotation, they just don't do it. So they dodge it.
That is a fair point. I gotta say though, Sneb, like you're talking about like the expired foods on the shelf, right? I do feel like maybe I'm just like, looking at this with like rose-colored glasses or something, but I do feel like that's getting better with the EOD strikes.
It is.
I do feel like
Yeah.
there's more, like the situation has improved compared to just like the race LFG. I feel like there are more groups, and I feel like there's more like joinable groups and all that stuff, but yeah.
The problem
definitely
is that
still
if
be a
people
bit
have
better.
had that experience before, they will not trust
Yeah,
it now. So it's really
exactly.
hard to like regain that
Mhm.
trust in the system. But I totally agree. I think that the quality of players, both in open world, in raids, strikes, etc., has dramatically increased. Dramatically, because people are seeking out resources and asking for help to improve so that they can do this content at a higher level. I just think overall, I would love that. Again, anecdotal,
Yeah.
totally just my observation, but it certainly feels like the quality of players improved and that people are putting in more effort because they want to participate in things like strikes or the Dragon End meta and have more impact. So I think it's been a really positive thing End of Dragons has for the community in that regard.
Well, we got Raid Core coming out someday when Delta finishes it. And when that happens, all of these problems will be solved because everyone will know what their parses are and it'll all be public and there won't be any dodging.
And you'll make
Look it up.
legendary only pauses. Yeah.
Legendary only parses or kick.
Are you familiar with Final Fantasy logs, Lara, or Warcraft logs?
Isn't this a thing where people try to get a really good parse so they can sort of use it to prove that they're good?
Yeah.
The
Right?
thing is, you're not going to be in control of uploading the logs. If you do a bad poll and that's the poll that your group kills and your commander uploads the log, you can't be like, hey, that was my bad poll. It's like, oh, too bad, buddy. That's
this sounds painful though.
It's called averages. Averages will bear out.
Your
Players will get the score they deserve.
Go down because you didn't get quickness. Oh gosh, I'm not sure what I think about that.
I mean, it's going to be totally fair.
You better never play with new players or your parse is gonna go down.
Well, yeah, that's what alt accounts are for. You got to smurf.
If
you got to do raid trainings on your smurf. But the raid core is going to have mechanical parses too.
Yeah.
If you mess up, you're through.
Yeah.
It will remember. Oh my gosh.
I think there's one more thing I want to talk about a little bit. I think the weekly LFG discussion has run its course. Okay, look, Sneb is like just drained. Look at him; he's actually like a husk. He's just drained of all life.
I'm still recovering from the 3 a.m. StarCraft. I'm not gonna lie. I'm still recovering. I'm old now. I can't do it.
Listen, I beat this guy 1v1 so bad he quit Guild Wars 2. Okay, that's the reality. Okay, that's what's going on here. Just destroyed him. Absolutely crushed him.
I'm getting better. I'm improving. Very slowly, albeit. But I mean, within 4 days, I've made dramatic improvements in my StarCraft 2 gameplay because I looked up a build order.
I think that's actually a super interesting example. Maybe this is one for another time, actually, because this is a bit of a rabbit hole. But I think it's super interesting what actually happened here. Because if you have been watching Sneb's stream, he's been streaming some StarCraft 2, and you'll actually see in real time what he tells people to do in Guild Wars 2. He did it in StarCraft 2. So we were playing some 2v2s, right? And we were having a few difficulties because the strategy wasn't there. Okay, the strategy was there. Sneb was like playing some scuffed build order from like 10 years ago. Okay, like
10 minutes.
Called out.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Called out.
Do you know what he did? Okay, but listen up, people in chat. Do you know what he did? He went on the internet and he looked up a build order. He looked at the build order. He read the build order. and then he did the build order in game, and then it was way better. And more importantly than that, he thought about what he was doing wrong, right? And not just him, both of us, because I'm fucking garbage. And I enjoy it. I enjoy being trash. It's actually one of the refreshing things about playing StarCraft 2, actually. Like when I play Guild Wars 2, because I'm so good at this game, I don't feel like the game pushes me at all, actually, anymore. But in StarCraft 2, I go, holy shit, I am terrible at this game. I am very, very bad. And it's actually a good feeling, right? It's good that I can progress. I can move on. In Guild Wars 2, whenever I do a raid, I'm just waiting for my team to stop fucking up. And that's going to sound very egotistical, but ultimately that is actually how it feels. Like even doing the strike mission CMs, I'm just waiting until it's over. I'm reading Twitch chat. I'm barely paying attention to the game. Even when I'm doing like relatively hard content. And that's just the nature of PvE to an extent, right? But yeah, it is good, and I would highly encourage you to watch Sneb play StarCraft 2 because you'll actually see again this process going on. Okay, like when we play 2v2, we'll look at the replay, right, and go, okay, what happened? Where did we lose? How did we lose? Right? This is the kind of thing that you want to do in Guild Wars 2 as well. Like, what was your mistake? Right? What went wrong? Why did you lose? What do you need to do? And you know what? Yeah, like me and Seb, we fixed it. Like we were like, you know what was really funny actually? What triggered it was we had like a horrible evening, right? We like lost so many games, just like feeding over and over again.
We lost six out of 7 games or something. And look, people, look at me. It shattered me as a human. I was so depressed.
This is why.
Look, I was so disappointed in myself. I was like, here I am making this British guy stay up until like 7 in the morning to play with me, and he's just losing over and over and over because I'm incompetent. I'm terrible. So like the next day, I wake up in the morning and I begin my study. I'm like, okay, I gotta get better so that the next time we play, I'm not holding Mr. Teapot back. So I look up like a build order that is like really simple, like just like beginner build order. And I'm like, okay, this is something I can coincidentally build off of. So I learned this. I went into the AI and I did like 7 or 8 matches where I'd make a mistake and then I'd stop and think, okay, why did I make that mistake? And then I'd redo it again and just like tried to get it so that it was more consistent. And then I went into a couple 1v1s and I tried it there. And it worked out all right. I won some games. And then I played with Teapot again, and we beat a bunch of Masters players and stuff. So it was totally night and day, right? Totally night and day. But yeah, like the failure, like the disappointment, man, I wish I had the comms for that. Like I was rattled, right? Like Teapot's trying to like I'm like, you're gonna have to micro my units, man. Like, I can't do this. Like, I was just getting so destroyed.
But it was good. You got through it, yeah. And you know what's really interesting? Actually, this is another massive tangent we're going on because I want to talk a little bit about the upcoming balance patch actually to kind of wrap things up here. But this is something that you mentioned, Seb. I think this is such a fucking big thing. Actually, is that he was playing Protoss, by the way, guys. Okay, yeah. The thing is that it's almost like the fear of raids is like the bark is worse than the bite. You know, like people are afraid of raids. They're afraid of improving in a way. They think it's way harder than it actually is, right? And bear in mind, guys, StarCraft 2 is a harder game than Guild Wars 2, especially in PvE, by the way. And Sneb was able to improve and significantly increase our 2v2 win rate in one day. Okay, one day. That's how long it took, right? It was just like the case of like, okay, right, we got to look at this and then fix it, and like using the knowledge, like learning a few things, and then moving on. And you can do this in Guild Wars 2 as well. Like you absolutely can. You know, you can. A lot of it is just understanding how to approach something, right? Like the actual technique in how you approach something like Dragon's End, right? Is very important, but the level of misinformation is so extreme that when we were doing, I'm sure you remember this, Sneb, right? When we were doing Dragon's End on release, people unironically couldn't believe that we were doing it. They were like, the only reason you've done this is because you are ridiculously lucky. I'm like, we've killed it 30 times in a row. Do you still think we're lucky? And they unironically say yes. And it's like, oh, that is where I, like, how do you get past that? Like, there were people who thought we were were lying, right? We weren't telling the truth, that it's not possible that we could be beating this, right? It was impossible to win. Because
you just had hand-picked groups of
only raiders, like only like mega try-hard raiders like in the groups. It's like, whoa. That's the level of the knowledge gap. Like a lot of the players in Guild Wars 2 view it as impossible, right? Unbeatable. Unless you have this ultra try-hard group, where in reality it was like, we got people on Discord and we made subgroups and we made sure that people had boons, right? That's the knowledge that you need. Like taking that knowledge and applying it to the game, that's how you win.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm just gonna say it. This is gonna sound this is gonna sound really blunt, but it's actually easier to do this in Guild Wars 2 than StarCraft 2.
Oh God, yes.
It's so much easier to improve. So much, so much, because in StarCraft, like yesterday, like the final game I did, it broke me. I was really tired and I lost. I lost, and I knew what was happening the whole time. Like I knew why I was losing, and I was powerless to stop it. Like because I lacked the critical information, right? So in StarCraft, it's both like your dexterity, like how fast can you move your fingers, how well do you know the hotkeys, and then it's your strategy. How well do you know like a build order, or how well do you know what the other player is doing when you scout them? How well can you predict where they're going to be and what they're going to do? And then how well can you move your units and avoid taking as much damage as possible, also maintaining your growth and your economy and stuff. There's just like so many moving pieces. It's strategy. It's just very complex. And so when you watch back replays and you try to analyze like what you're doing wrong, there's so many things that you're doing wrong. But in Guild Wars 2, you could seriously put on like a low intensity build and do really good damage within 30 minutes. Whereas like you could take like a master's class about StarCraft 2 and still be low diamond at the end, right? Like it's really hard.
You could also
to
still
get
be
good.
Silver. You be really bad.
Yeah, that's true. That was maybe a bit generous.
Diamond is very generous.
Yeah, it's really hard to get good at StarCraft. Really hard. But Guild Wars 2, like with the raid, you're playing against other players in StarCraft 2, right? So I mean, taking PvP away from Guild Wars 2 for a second, for raids and stuff, all you have to do is put on a build, read what your skills do, and then execute that to the best of your ability. And you will very likely, if you're on a DPS build and you're like even a low intensity build, you're going to do like 20k DPS. So if you just have that like problem solving mindset, you can tear down the barriers to entry for a lot of this content really quickly. It's mostly attitude, I find, that really holds people back. A lot of people have this self-fulfilling prophecy. They say, I just can't do it. Like I have X, Y, and Z that prevents me from doing this. And if people can get past voice crack, if they can get past that, yelling too much from StarCraft 2 late at night, if you can get past that, then you'll be fine, right? But it's just helping people understand that they can do it. You got to get like Shia LaBeouf thing, right? Like, just do it. You can do it. Like, it's totally doable. But most people feel very strongly that they can't. And oh man, I like want to help those people. Like, they can do it. I believe so strongly in them.
I feel like there's so many good resources out there now for that have made that easier. Like, there's now all these low intensity builds out there everywhere. Like, I think a lot of these build websites now have beginner sections and stuff. I 100% feel that. Yeah, it's easier than ever now. I feel to sort of like do that research and try to improve. Just also with a lot of EUD specs being kind of easy to play. You're definitely right. I think anyone can do it as long as you just like. I think a lot of people have this sort of mental barrier in their heads where they're like, "Oh, it's really hard. I can't do it." But you're completely right. It's not. It's pretty straightforward. You can just do it in like half an hour, basically, and just improve so much. I feel.
Balance
Yeah,
memes.
balance memes. Yeah, enough of that.
Nice segue.
I like that. Yeah. So there's a balance patch coming up, June 28th, and
2 weeks, right?
oh yeah, yeah. I think it's going to be very hype. It's going to be hopefully very impactful to the gameplay and create a lot of content, right? Like balance patches are content because you play new builds, you have new strategies. I think they can really change the game in a big way, even more than adding content sometimes, to be honest, actually. And we're quite fixated on the PvE element actually, but I think there'll be a lot in PvP and World versus World 2, expecting some really great things. But I do want to focus in on the PvE stuff, just for a little bit at the start, actually. And I think I'll kind of let Nike lead into this, actually, because the big things that are happening in PvE is banners and spirits are getting reworked. And I think this is a super interesting time for those particular professions. I'd argue more for Warrior than Ranger even, actually. I think the big thing is going to be what happens to Warrior after this patch. So what's going on, Nike? Give us a little juice.
So they've sort of said that banners and spirits are going to be essentially boon providers. I think it's going to be Warriors going to get quickness, and Druid's going to get, or not Druid, but Ranger's going to get alacrity. How all that's going to work is anyone's guess, because there's multiple spirits, there's multiple banners. So how do you, like, what if one banner gives quickness? What are the other banners going to do? Like some redundant boon? Maybe. A lot of people speculate that you're going to need specific traits to enable, like if you'll be able to get like a decent amount of quickness. Perhaps like for example, you might be able to get like a little bit of quickness uptime out of untraded banners, but if you want like your warrior to be a quickness bot who covers it for the group, you'll have to do like a special trait, maybe take like the tactics trait line. And like you said, that's probably less of a problem for Druid because they're already taking nature magic, which is where you would put a trait like that. So Druid doesn't have to sacrifice hardly anything to do that. Whereas for Warrior, in the best case scenario is that it enables a new play style and a new role that, makes it better for even easier for a Warrior player to get into a group. But then the other side of the coin is potentially it creates a scenario where no one wants a Warrior at all, and there's no room for Warrior, or you can bring a Warrior as like a DPS, but it's like, okay, well, it's not the best DPS in this slot, so who cares? Who wants it really? So there's a lot up in the air. I think Ranger is probably fine in that Druid will be able to bring alacrity and not have to give up much to do it, and everyone's going to be happy with that. But I think Warrior is the big question mark. My guess also, since Banner of Discipline is probably no longer going to give precision, is that everyone baseline is going to get 150 precision or 100 precision to all classes. Like instead of being base 4% crit, you'll be base like whatever that is, like 4. You'll be base like 8.5% crit chance to make up for that, and that'll be every profession across the board. And I wouldn't be surprised if since Warrior has that banner trait that gets more stats from banners, that Warrior's going to get an even bigger personal DPS buff to make up for it. But also in theory that the Warrior banner, like the trait and discipline that gives you more stats from banners, could just simply be while Banner of Discipline is down, you get, 150 precision, 150 crit damage. So so Warrior could just get the Warrior trait might actually stay similar, but it'll only work if you're playing Banner bot. So I don't know. I'm pretty apprehensive. I do think that the devs know what they're doing for balance, but like balance doesn't necessarily mean fun, and doesn't necessarily something could be balanced, but doesn't mean you want to play it. So I'm cautiously pessimistic.
Yeah, it's tough because Warrior is one of these professions that is quite one-dimensional in the way it plays out. There's not a lot of foundation to bring in this boon support type of build, right? Like back in the day, you had Phalanx Strength Warrior, so you'd provide might, but like just providing might isn't really good enough anymore because, well, things have been power cut, right? Things have moved on a little bit from that. So they're going to have to do a lot to make warrior work. If we think about this kind of support warrior thing, and this we're looking at a hybrid build, you could maybe have like a ritualist Condi boon banner warrior. You know, you could have diviner, a bit like mech, maybe like a bit like a mechanist build, because mech has this like power diviner, like mega boon build that it can do. Maybe warrior could be a little bit like that with banners, maybe. The support build, it's very tough. You have shout heal and you have warhorn, right? And then you're going to have some boon access. Is that good enough to really compete with the supports in the game right now? I mean, there's some pretty good supports in the game right now. And I think that this balance patch has got to address some pretty big things, in my opinion. Because right now, I'm just gonna drop some bombs here, guys. There are two healers in the game. There's Mech and there is Firebrand. Because they like deleted Tempest. They also like kind of bopped Druid pretty hard. And they made Mech and Firebrand like ridiculously insane. Because it turns out that going from 10 targets to 5 targets while not nerfing Firebrand, pretty good. Okay? Pretty fucking good. Especially seeing as they actually arguably buffed, you know, Firebrand kind of with the heal skill, right? And Mech is just a stupid build, to be honest. Like that's like a genuinely insane build. There's not really that much going on. And then if you look at damage classes, and this is why I'm kind of worried about saying like Warrior, like you can give Warrior like 40k DPS, but do you really care about that when you can play a 37k DPS ranged build that is unkillable, can revive other allies, cleanses Condis, and has insane utility baked into it? Do you care about that? And I think that strike missions in particular have actually really exposed how right I was about balancing Guild Wars 2. And I hope that everyone in the YouTube comments will now tell me, yes, Teapot, you're right. Please, go on. Yeah, admit it. It turns out that if you balance range damage classes and damage classes that have loads of utility, if you balance that equally with classes that have no utility, no self-sustain, and are melee, it turns out the melee classes fucking suck. They're really bad, and nobody plays them in anything that's remotely challenging, okay? Yeah, you know, right now in the strike missions, we're seeing Firebrand, Scourge, and Virtuoso just completely dominate the meta in pug groups, right? Like, it's always going to be heal mechs. It's always going to be heal Firebrands, right? Because, again, like, they just do everything. You could play a heal Tempest, but you don't give stability. You don't give Aegis. You could play a Druid, right? But, again, you don't have this 10-target access in the same way that you used to. It doesn't really make any sense anymore. You really struggle to do this because certain professions are just so much more versatile than other professions, right? You know, that's just the way it is.
I am so excited for Alacrity Druids. I just want to like live in a world where there's more than 2 healers that people play. like you said, it's all about heal mech and heal firebrand now. The idea of having an Alacrity Druid just makes me really happy. I really want Tempest and Herald to get something as well, though, and that's the thing that I'm like scared of. Like, it just feels like because they don't have quickness or alacrity, they just like fall behind so much. Something else I'm really curious about, kind of talking about druids a bit. Do we know yet if they're gonna do something to Spotter? Because Spotter is like, didn't they say something that they kind of want to get rid of like these profession-specific boons with like, you know, they're getting rid of the spirits. You know, how those used to be like, oh, you specifically need a ranger for spirits, you specifically need a warrior for banners. You still specifically need a ranger for Spotter. I wonder if Spotter's getting deleted or something.
In my experience, strike missions have actually made people realize that you don't care that much about offensive buffs, especially on CM, actually.
It's because you're not playing power classes on those bosses.
True. That's definitely a part of it, I think. But I think in general, players have realized they've been overvaluing optimizing DPS a little bit too much. And it turns out that leaning on really insane utility and sustain is actually what gets the job done, right? It's not uncommon to see 3 healers on Kaineng Overlook challenge mode, right? It's not uncommon to see 3 healers and just like a load of Scourges. And Nike's totally right here. The simple fact of the matter is that Scourge just kind of doesn't care about these buffs as much, right? It just does its thing, right? No matter what. It's very good on its own. It doesn't need that level of synergy. And, well, this is another really big thing. Power classes in general. Oh.
Lara is gone.
Lara's dead. That's okay, though. I'm Lara now. Boom.
GG.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
back.
Oh, Lara's back.
I got disconnected.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
That's not
you
good.
were saying something really interesting, and then you just froze.
Yeah.
Like sad now.
I'm back. Wait, I mean, you're back. Yeah, so the problem is that there's actually some fairly serious design issues, in my opinion, in the Guild Wars 2 PvE meta. And specifically, power classes are very dependent on synergy and modifiers, right? Whereas condition builds are not. And I need to actually explain what I mean by modifiers. So if you're in the game right now, everyone here, you can test this. Look at a power build and look at a condi build. On a power build, what you're going to see is that all of your traits say, do 20% more damage if. Do 15% more damage here, right? Etc. etc. You're also going to be relying on banners and spotter to crit cap a good amount of the time, which is really important to your damage output. And now look at a condi build. And what you'll then realize is that a lot of condi traits are a lot more passive, right? They aren't dependent on anything else. They just do. They just exist. And this is actually a big problem because it means that power builds, because of the way they are designed, only work if everyone's on the same page, whereas condi builds always work. And this is actually a design issue that I think ArenaNet wants to slowly address by either making power a bit less modifier reliant or making condi a bit more modifier reliant. I don't actually have a preference on that. I think both is fine. I don't really care either way.
I doubt the second will happen because they're moving away from modifiers in general.
Yeah, and well, I think that maybe demonstrates that they realize the issue. They kind of get it, right? They understand what's causing the problem then, perhaps. Sorry, go ahead, Lara.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing silently again.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that does... I don't know, just... Right now, I am expecting just kind of a big nuke to drop on the current balance. There's just... I think this is gonna be big. They're reworking like the whole banner thing, they're reworking the spirits thing, but I would not be surprised if Mechanist and Virtuoso specifically are just gonna be like completely
Mechanist
dotted.
is gonna get bopped.
Yeah.
It just feels like, because it had like, not like, even if they nuked the support build, like Power Mech is obscene and Condi Mech is obscene in terms of what they can do. So like, I have a feeling that if you're a mech main, that it's over. Like, you're going to have to move on, and it's gonna be meme status, unfortunately.
I hope they don't nerf it too hard, because I gotta say I'm kind of happy that I'm not playing heal firebrand as much. But like, it's nice to play heal mech for a bit, where it's just like variety, right? But who knows? Maybe I'll be an Alacrity Druid main soon. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. You know what the really big... before EOD, I said that I don't think the meta is going to change that much. But there was one thing that I didn't see coming that actually really disrupted the meta. And it was that they deleted Chrono, okay? They made Inspiration Chrono fucking bad, okay? That 10 target signet was what enabled Druid, essentially, right? And without that kind of hold Druid in play, everything imploded, right? Because now Druid isn't that good anymore, and because Druid isn't good anymore, well, Heal Scourge is kind of annoying to fit into the meta. Well, now that Druid's gone, well, now you're just going to run 2 fire runs. Now you're going to run 2 mechanists, right, as healers and supports, right, and as quickness providers. And that
is too good.
Yeah, that was the final, piece of the Jenga tower, right? Like, I actually think that Chrono, if it hadn't got nuked, it would have actually survived. And the meta would have been a lot more stable. But I think the nerf to Inspiration Chrono just made it all fall apart, right? It deleted Druid from the meta at the same time. It really made things go in a different direction. I think they shouldn't have done that. But you know what? I can't believe I'm saying this. I honestly can't believe this. But I was talking about it on stream and I thought, holy shit, that actually kind of makes sense given the state of the game right now. Because the game has got a lot more boon spammy, a lot easier basically to play. What if they actually bring back Chaos Chrono? This unironically fixes a lot of problems with the meta, right?
They do.
Crazy.
It's heel mech. I mean, that's
yeah, it's heel mech. Chaos Chrono is heel mech. They're the same.
No, it's more likely that heel mech is just going to go, and they're both a thing of the past.
Chaos Chrono's going to come back.
Let's go for them.
They're gonna do AOE. They're gonna do AOE boons again on Chaos. It's back. Let's go.
It's kind of sad. I've been thinking about this balance patch a lot, and this is the first time I'm even thinking about Chrono. I've just kind of forgotten that Chrono exists. I'm sitting like I want Tempest, I want Herald, and Chrono's just kind of like, oh yeah, that used to be a thing I played.
Buff.
It's been a while.
I think you're really on it about Herald. Buffing Herald would be really good, I think. Specifically, if they gave it quickness, that build is a fucking beast. Okay? All of a sudden, it's like, if they gave it quickness and like 25 might, so they made the might generation better on it. So you do 25 might, quickness, prot, swiftness, right, as well. You've got loads of CC, and you do like 25k DPS. Okay, that's actually a build. Do you know what's actually insane about this, guys? Let me actually blow your mind, right? And I'm gonna, listen, Firebrand mains, okay? You better stop crying. If you did that, is it actually good enough to be better than or even equal to Firebrand? I'm not even sure if it's good enough. because of Firebrand just has so much utility packed into it. Where's your Aegis, right? You can take stability on Herald, but you don't have Aegis. And you can take stability, but you have to give up Shiro, so you lose a lot of your damage. Like, Firebrand is just broken. I'm sorry, it's just such a busted build with the way it works. And I think this is where we're really running into problems here, right? Is that some elite specializations have zero trade-off, right, at all, and they just get everything. And other elite specializations have like brutal trade-offs. If you want to take a piece of utility, you just get absolutely eviscerated if you try and take this, right?
That's the fear with warriors, that you're going to have to give up your strength trait line.
Exactly, you're going to get fucked.
And other classes don't have to make anywhere near that kind of trade-off.
Yeah, you're in this really tough spot where the top builds, it's not even, the thing is, it's not even about the numbers. There are better healers than Healbrand and Healmech, by the way. A lot better healers, actually. They're not the best healers. Their strength is their versatility, right? They do too much. It's why Scourge is so strong. It's why Firebrand is so strong. They just do too much. And by the way, I did try to warn the devs about this. Nerfing the support on Scourge was useless, actually. It did nothing. The design was why it was so good. They took the barrier down by 50%. 50%! They nerfed it by. And they removed the AoE barrier on the heal. And guess what? It didn't do shit. Because the fact that it can do that at all with no opportunity cost is why it's so strong, right? It's not even the number. You could honestly nerf it again and it wouldn't make that much difference. And this is what worries me, that the devs don't respect this. The issue is design, right? These elite specializations, their design is what makes them good. Same with mech, by the way. Mech is exactly the same. Everything about it is passive, and it has the complete package. It has stability. It has like every boon in the entire game. It has like it's a very, very massive radius, right? It's like a huge radius. It's the complete package. And the problem is that there are lots of builds that aren't the complete package. They're good, and in some ways they're better. Like Tempest, for example, is a better healer than mech, and Firebrand, actually. But the problem is with Tempest, it's not the complete package. It's not even close to the complete package, actually. And because of that, it just can't really fit into the composition, because versatility and being able to handle different situations without getting punished is what makes a build good in PvE. And I love gloating, so I'm going to do it. You guys should go and look at my video, what makes a PvE build good in Guild Wars 2. And I made this video 1 year ago, and everything in it is right. And ArenaNet have not actually started the design around this, and they need to start doing it. Also, welcome back, Lara.
Yeah, I keep disconnecting. I don't know what's happening. My internet does not want to cooperate with me today.
That's not good. Oh no. Keeps it exciting though. It allows us to play musical chairs, right? Because I have become you temporarily, right? I have moved.
Everyone moves around.
Yeah, everyone's moving.
I can
It's good.
I can speak to why some things that I'm hoping happen with the balance patch. I've been fairly quiet about this. Part of me is a little apathetic to it because I don't know that there'll be any like super. I still think I'll be able to kill the bosses no matter what. So I'm not like super worried about it. The thing that I'm actually most troubled by in the game right now, and this is probably going to seem really odd, is the amount of passive damage mitigation and mechanic stopping stuff. For example, but I think it's both Alacrity Mech and Heal Mech have like permanent, well, maybe not permanent, but near permanent 1 stack of stability. So every time you use this, you might get hit by something, but you won't even know. And then they just apply it again every like 25, 30 seconds or something. And then it also gives you Aegis. So you could block the next attack too. So I feel like this just allows people to never really engage with the mechanics in a meaningful way because they just are pressing this button off cooldown and it's constantly stopping stuff. So you don't have to really think about what's happening and react to it. What I would like to see is a huge reduction in the duration of those two things, both Aegis and stability. That way, it's more reactive. So you're like, okay, I know this mechanic is coming, or hey, this mechanic is about to happen. I press the button, I block the attack.
You know what they're going to do, Sneb? You know what they're going to do? They're just going to add stability. Because you're completely correct, by the way, with Aegis and stability. I actually think Aegis and stability are the two biggest problems in balance in Guild Wars 2 right now. If you don't have stability, you are at such a ludicrous disadvantage that it's not even funny. And it just so happens that like 2 builds can apply it in a convenient way, right? In the entire game. So no shit people are going to play this, right? I think Kaineng Overlook CM is the best part because I guarantee you that almost nobody actually knows the strategy to do Kaineng Overlook CM without stab. It is doable, by the way. You can do that fight on CM without stability, but nobody knows how to do it. I can almost guarantee it. There's like a positioning trick you can do, basically, just so everyone knows. You can position quickly and then dodge very, very fast behind the boss and you won't get knocked off. Or just, get knocked in a specific way. It can be done, actually. But nobody knows that because stability, deletes the mechanic. It makes it totally irrelevant with how it's supposed to be done, right? And it's the same in fractals. Stability breaks fractals and so does Aegis. And if you don't have that, you're fucking useless, right? Or you can't really do that much. Oh man, this is where the floodgates of my rant are open now, Sneb. No one else gets to talk ever again on this stream. But the problem is, how do you fix it? Because let's suppose we give stability to Tempest, right, on the Earth trait line, because it has a stab trait. Well, now you can't take Arcane. You're in the warrior position that Nike was talking about, right? So you want to take stab on Tempest? Great. You give up one of your most overpowered trait lines and yeah, get fucked. Whereas on Firebrand, you're like, oh yeah, I'll just go ahead and take this on my 37k DPS class for like a 1k DPS loss. I mean, come on. It's oh no.
Yeah, to me, the biggest problem with balance right now is the fact that I can interchange Heal Mech and Heal Brand and Quick Brand and Alacrity Mech, and I have all these same problems. There's just infinite Aegis boons, there's just it's just so passive, right? Those two classes right now completely make up all of the boons in every subgroup, and I just find that to be a bit oppressive. I think that they need to tune that down so that the other options are more worth taking. I mean, the other options are totally viable, don't get me wrong. But like, I look at these two classes and I just think, why would I take anything else? Because these are just so powerful and on a passive level too. So
I think it's almost more likely that they will like adjust the other ones upwards. I think it's almost more likely that they'll give like Druid some way to give stab, for example, or again Tempest or Herald or something.
Well, Druid can give stab. It's just reactive.
Yeah,
That's the
true.
difference. So like I'll play Druid in raids sometimes, and people are like, "Who's our stability for this at Sloth?" And I'm like, "I am." Like I'm gonna do it, and they're like, "You can't do that." I'm like, "Yes, I can. I just have to time it really, really well." And so it's much more skillful to do that because you have a smaller window.
Yeah.
But the other stuff, you just like press the button. It doesn't. It's you have like a 7-second window to do it, and you're gonna be fine, right? So I don't know. I think in some ways you might be right, but like I think it would be a shame because just it takes a lot of the complexity out of the fights at all. Yeah.
It's the power creep problem, right? It's the power creep problem. Like we're in this weird state where, look, it's no coincidence that almost everything in the new strike missions is a one-shot, right? And I did predict this, by the way, guys. I predicted that they'd have to do this because the game is so power crept that anything that isn't a flat one-shot isn't really that much of a threat. Hell, look at the sniper shot on Kinding Overlook CM. How do you deal with that? You overheal it. You ignore, you don't do the mechanic correctly. The intended way you're supposed to do that, right, is you like trade it, right? You pass it on to someone else so you don't get hit twice, right? But the way we do it is you literally break the mechanic, right? By abusing power creep in the game, essentially, right? That's pretty interesting, I think. And almost everything can get broken by how strong builds are.
I wish they would just add stuff in the game, like if you take the hit, you get, and they do this for some things in the game, by the way. I wish that you take a hit and get a debuff. Oh, surprise wife! Hey, you take like if you go on the cannons at Sabbatha, right? You know how you get a debuff for like 50 seconds, so you can't take another one. Mm-hmm. Why don't they just have those things, but for the mechanics, like, so that you don't out heal them, right? If you take a shot, you have to pass the shot on, otherwise you will die to the next one. They even did that in the same encounter, right? With if you take too many, well, kind of. If you get punched too many times, or whatever, you're like instantly down or whatever. Like, isn't that true?
Yeah. If you get hit by the number attack twice.
Yeah. So I feel like they actually could do this, but maybe they're specifically choosing not to. I don't know.
Well, maybe they didn't want to make it too hard, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would make it a lot harder. It would have.
Hey, if you couldn't overheal, that boss is so much harder, actually. Like, no joke. It's way harder. It requires so much coordination to do that, to do it correctly. It's already a Pug Slayer, and it would be like an insane Pug Slayer if you had to pass it on, to be honest. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I really like the bait strat, just because like only 2 people need to pay attention,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that just makes the success rate so much higher.
Yeah.
Just like people don't have to think about it.
Minstrel gear.
Yeah, exactly.
Minstrel gear, let's go.
You know how I beat it?
How'd you beat it?
Every Scourge played Trailblazer.
That's big.
Really?
We played 6 Trailblazer Scourge, and then our Firebrands were playing either Minstrels or Selly, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then what's that gear stat called that gives you like some HP? I forget.
Marauder?
Okay. Anyway, the mechs had a bunch of extra vitality.
Okay.
So like everyone on our team had like 30k HP.
Nice.
That's how we beat it. And it worked super well. We were still doing like 25 to 30k on all the Scourges with full Trailblazers, but we just took no damage.
Yeah. It's big. I mean, look, that's what, in a way, that's kind of what you want, right? You're adapting. Adaptations.
Yeah.
Multiple
options.
Good. Yeah.
It worked really well.
I think I don't think they're going to address power. I'm a little worried in the same.
They're going to bring up power.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
They're going to, like they've said before that like their philosophy is raise the floor.
Mm.
So that's likely what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm very curious. Like, I honestly don't think that I'm going to go on the record and say this, and then it's going to be really impactful.
Nice.
But unless they really hit Firebrand and Mechanist, adding quickness to Warrior and Alacrity to Ranger will do very little in the way of changing the team compositions, like the meta team compositions. But what it would do is give viability to different classes. So that's positive. But they have to chunk Mech. Mech is so good. Like, if I have the option, I'm playing Mech everywhere. Everywhere. It's so powerful and has so much utility.
Yeah. This is the big problem, right? Like, they're going to run into they're going to hit bedrock here, and the bedrock is that their design is very uneven between a lot of these specializations. It's not that it's kind of like you could keep adding numbers to a build like Heal Catalyst almost all day, and people still wouldn't play it, right? You could add loads of extra damage to Herald, and people probably still wouldn't play it. It's because the design isn't there. Like, they're the way the profession works, the way the build functions is just so much weaker than the meta builds, right? Stuff like the Firebrands, the mechs, and even I would say this was true of Chrono, by the way, before it got destroyed. Feels bad. It's so powerful. And by the way, if you guys want examples of this, you can look at PvP. PvP, this exact same thing happened. Firebrand dominated the PvP meta until ArenaNet literally made everything it did heal for 300 and have a 1 second boon duration. And that's not an exaggeration. I encourage you to check. If you play Firebrand in PvP right now, your abilities give 1 second of protection, right? That's how powerful that design is. It has to be garbage before the design won't carry it anymore. And the exact same thing happened with Scourge as well, of course. In PvP, you would run like 3 Scourges, even though it did no fucking damage, right? Was like really, really slow and was totally useless, basically. Why? Well, it turns out that just being able to have all of these abilities for 0 opportunity cost made it insanely oppressive, and there was nothing you could do about it. You couldn't shut it down because it was just too much. The exact same thing happened in PvP, and I think we're kind of at this point where we need to have this conversation in PvE as well. Like, there needs to be some design changes to the way abilities work, right? We need to see utility skills being reworked on certain professions, like Spellbreaker. Why not make Spellbreaker actually have a bunch of support utility skills, so you can make some kind of like bizarre support warrior going on there, change some of the traits to make it a bit different, okay? I think you have to rework this stuff. It's not, I don't think you can, there are some things you can't fix with numbers. And in PvE, boon distribution is the problem, right? And utility distribution and trade-offs with taking this utility is what's screwing stuff over. There are some builds that do literally everything, and there are some builds that do only a few things, and then a few of the other things as well, right? But the problem is that the only builds that people are going to want to play are the builds that can do everything, right? Because why would you choose something that can't do everything, right? And that's going to make it hard to build groups. There it is.
There's this core rifle warrior build I saw in PvP at one point. They actually got the ability to fly. They even were in like a monthly automated tournament and stuff.
Helicopter warrior.
Just give us
let's really bring that back. That was really interesting.
Why don't we have Ursinway?
I remember that.
Why are they trying to balance the game at this point?
Yeah.
They should just make it so all Norn, when they become the bear, that's the meta build. And that the become the bear is infinite. And so only Norns will then take over the game. And then Ursinway will be back.
I think in Guild Wars 1, there's like a broken build for every profession, right?
Basically, except some are even more broken than others. Yeah, every profession has at least... Well, no, Monk has no good builds.
Oh.
Monk is trash.
Feels bad.
In PvE.
Unlucky.
Do you think they'll do something about Untames? I feel like so many people I know are just like waiting for the PvE Untames rework. Just holding out hope that it's gonna happen 2 weeks from now. Do you think they will, or do you think Untames will like be the spell breaker, you know, just like we don't really think about that in PvE.
Hot
Is
take.
that the rumored end of Dragon's Ranger elite spec? Untamed? I haven't heard of it.
Here's the thing. This is gonna be this is a scorching hot take, but also 0 Kelvin take at the same time. Not all builds and specs should be good in every game mode.
That's true.
I think it's perfectly
Gotcha.
acceptable for certain specializations to be designed to work in one game mode, but not the other. And the only caveat here is that every profession should have an elite spec that works in every game mode. Or rather, in you know, there should be a build that works in every game and for every profession. Right? So you can always play something that works. Untamed is actually really good in PvP. It's excellent. It's actually one of the best builds for ranked, you know, kind of up there with Harbinger and Willbender. It's very good. As a roamer in World versus World, I imagine it actually works pretty damn well in that situation too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in PvE, it doesn't do anything. And that's the problem. They can make it do damage, and they probably will. It will probably end up with like a 40k benchmark, which will make it probably see a little bit of niche play. But it's never going to be Scourge, and it's never going to be Virtuoso. Why? The exact same reason that I just described. Design, right? What does it do? What does it have that it can bring to the table? Maybe some kind of spirit build? Maybe. But you could do that on Soul Beast, right? If you wanted to instead. You don't have to be Untamed. In fact, Soul Beast is a lot better because it has some stance share. It has some support potential. Untamed just doesn't really do anything in the context of PvE. It only makes sense in PvP.
Yeah. I do think you're right. I do think most people are still hoping, though. I see so many people, like Ranger mains, that are like disappointed about the fact that it's kind of a PvP spec, that are like just waiting for this balance patch and imagining a big rework. I'm very curious to see what they're gonna do. I'm
you
very
can play it.
curious.
Here's the thing. No one's telling them they can't play it. You can play it and you can do damage.
Yeah.
They just probably feel like they can't because, well, everything, it's not the best spec, right? It's not.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I used to play Scrapper when nobody was playing Scrapper. I got kicked from groups for playing Scrapper.
You deserve it.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you know what? I still did, like, I joined a IBS strike group once.
Hello?
We're back. How you guys
Hello?
doing?
Is it me you're looking for?
Nice. Okay. Sneb.
Scrapper story.
Scrapper story.
I don't
Tell
think
us.
Oh yeah.
don't
So
think
I was
remember
playing
what you were
Scrapper.
talking about.
Oh, yeah, okay. The context. So, people, you can play Untamed, but the reason that people probably feel like they can't is because, well, nobody is, right? So they never see it. They have no one to really look up to for that. It's not like any content creators are playing that either, right? Like, you've got a big problem. Nobody's playing it, so nobody's playing it. But you can, and it can still be productive in a group. So we had this problem with Scrapper. I was playing Scrapper when like nobody was playing it, and Hollow was just so much better. This was before Scrapper had quickness too. So I went into a group doing IBS strikes, and they told me that they were like, "LOL, a Scrapper. Like, aren't you going to switch to Hollow?" And I said no. And they said, "Have fun being at the bottom of the DPS list." And then I proceeded to out DPS all of them, and they were just like, "But how?" And I'm like, "Well, I practiced it. Like, I'm not like the best player ever, but I just put like a bunch of effort in because I thought this would be like cool and fun."
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, like you can do it. You can do it. You're just gonna have to put in like more work to get good at it, probably.
What do you guys think is the best PvE build that isn't on Snow Crows?
He was good.
Yeah, it's definitely Eel Scourge.
Okay, the best DPS build that isn't on Snow Crows.
Hybrid Heel Scourge.
I think they have all the good DPS builds, no? I think.
Definitely feels like they have most.
Do they have Dagger Deadeye? Which is a very good
so.
build.
Is it a good build? Is it a good build?
It's got good DPS.
Let's see. Wait, let's see.
I gotta like pull up Snow Crows to.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I've got to see what they don't have. I'm gonna take a look.
They have Dagger, Condi, Daredevil. Wait, didn't you say
No, we're
Deadeye?
not talking Condi. Power, Dagger, Deadeye.
Deadeye. Yeah, I don't think they do.
Do they have shortbow Soul Beast?
Hell no.
Because
That's a good build.
Yeah, they don't have shortbow Soul Beast. The Soul Beast they have right now is Dagger Torch, Axe, Dagger.
They don't have Heal Kata either. Which is not a DPS build, but still interesting.
Yeah. So I would say, yeah, Condi Soul Beast, but shortbow edition. Pretty good.
I like that build
sleeper
because it made
build.
Rocka quit the game.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, Rocket actually
It broke
uninstalled the
him.
game. Yeah, he couldn't.
It's what you never know what's going to break people. I mean, look at Sneb. Who thought that this would be the final straw?
Yeah,
But when it comes to Rocka, it was the shortbow Soul Beast, better known as SB3.
yes. Oh, that build is very good. What else? What other builds are there in this game? I would say Boon Herald isn't there, but Boon Herald is bad.
Yeah,
so
it's
it's not in a good spot.
Doesn't count.
It's good in open world. It's great open world build.
That is
but
true.
Not
That is true.
So good in organized content.
Yeah, I guess maybe you could. You could. Condi Tempest is a pretty good build actually. Do they not have that? I thought they had that. They actually don't have Condi Tempest. Yeah, they only have Power Tempest.
They have Power Quickness Scrapper, but they don't have. Well, it's probably because it's like the same build with like a few different tweaks, but they don't actually have just like DPS Scrapper. It looks like, which honestly is a really good build. A lot of people won't play it because it doesn't do as much damage, but it self-sustains really well. I will play that as a tank a lot of the time.
They don't have the Chaos Virtuoso as well. They're probably disgusted by that build. I mean, to be honest, I'm disgusted by that build as well. I think everyone should be disgusted by how like ridiculous that build is. Oh my god!
Why is that? I'm uneducated about this.
Because the Chaos trait line is pretty wild, right? You get to take the damage reduction trait, like Illusionary Defense or whatever it's called, in the Chaos Adept line. So it means you basically permanently have like 20% damage reduction the entire time. It's just very, very easy to play, right? It's one of them. It's like an incredibly easy to play build. It's also insanely unkillable at the same time. It's kind of like Pink Scourge. It's a little bit like Pink Scourge. It's nearly there, right? And you spam your abilities really hard because of Chaotic Interruption too.
That's one thing for the balance patches. I think Condi Virtuoso is not going to be a top DPS build after this patch.
Yeah, there's no way they're keeping
Well, I
that.
mean, they said it specifically in whatever balance patch it was, what their intentions for Condi Virtuoso were. They said they wanted Power Virtuoso to be like the raid spec, and Condi Virtuoso to be like the tanky sort of open world spec that does lower damage but has higher sustain. And I think that they're going to tune it to be more in line with that, and you'll see Condi Virtuoso go away, but Power will still be there, and it's probably still going to be quite good.
Yeah.
I feel like Condi Virtuoso and just Mechanist in general are like the two nerfs that are like a given at this point. I don't see them keeping those the way they are at all.
Probably not. Yeah. I don't know. There's one thing. Okay, this is a little bit late in the conversation to actually make this statement, but we actually no, it's not. We've only been live for 6 minutes. It's very early on. But I don't feel like I know what the balance team wants, and to me, that's an issue. Well, I mean, obviously not on their end, but as someone who's in the community, and I think this is a bit worrying for other community members who are worried about balance, who are worried about their class getting nerfed, or they're concerned about the meta, right? They're concerned about, like if they're going to be able to play certain builds, like viability, right? All that kind of stuff, like, popularity. These are all legitimate concerns that the player base can have. But my issue is that I genuinely don't know what's the goal. What do ArenaNet want with this? Because we have this very nebulous, we want boons to just happen, right? They kind of say, oh yeah, it's just gonna let us be there, right? But I want to know if I want to kind of get inside their head a bit. I want to be invited inside the mind of the ArenaNet balance team to really understand what they want. What does the game look like? In 5 years' time, what does the PvE meta look like? What will be their goal? I don't know. Am I crazy? Am I missing it? I don't feel like I have that information available to me. I don't think I.
They'll be getting that final balance patch ready in 5 years for the Guild Wars 3 launch, so that they can put Guild Wars 2 on maintenance mode. That'll be the plan.
Yeah,
I actually thought for a while that they wanted to depower creep, but I'm not too sure about that anymore.
Yeah.
But like there was a while where like we saw like the Aegis Firebrand spam getting gutted, and we saw like Scourge getting gutted a bit, but like not really.
And then they added
like,
EOD.
And then EOD specs came around.
We're gonna have to start balancing the henchmen and the heroes in the next X pack. That'll be hard.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I mean, look, that's why they added mech, right? Because the hero can play the mech. Can you imagine having, like, going around in the open world and a heal mechanist is just following you everywhere?
I want that. I need that. Then you can play, like, literally any build and just get carried by your heal mech henchman.
You play anything and you just have a heal firebrand and a heal mech just chasing you around. Like, just permanently following you around. Oh, man. That would be big. You could solo fractals with that. You could solo dungeons with that. Or anything.
You know what I want? I want the return of staff elementalists. That's just
you and all the Ellie mains.
You actually can play staff Ellie, but you like I play. I've played heal catalyst with staff before. Not the best build, but like it's fun.
I want it to be like the best DPS built in the game again. You know, it's just like
50k
you want to be top
DPS.
DPS. Yeah, you have to play Staff Tempest. Okay?
Only Staff Tempest.
Yeah.
You know, let me tell you guys a story here because, well, let me tell the chat a story. You're all probably aware of this actually, so you know you already know. You don't need the story, but I think when players complain about the metagame today, they don't remember Heart of Thorns. They don't know how raids were back then. Every single group was 2 Chronos, 2 Druids, 2 Warriors, and 4 Tempests. Because back then, that was actually
a good meta.
That was a good time, to be honest.
Those were actually the only good builds. Like, unironically, it was. I'm not even joking.
Except for Deroyer's Guild, which is running F comp.
The F comp, yes.
7-2-1.
Yeah, but they were like the only guild that ran the F.
Yeah, because everyone else could do math and saw it was bad. It was not good.
But
although 4-4-2 was decent for a little bit.
Yeah. Like, you know, you don't want to have these like mega OP builds, right, in the game. And Staff Tempest was probably one of the most disgustingly overpowered builds the game has ever had, right? And to be honest, Staff Weaver was as well, right? Like, Ellie mains aren't going to want to admit this, but Staff Weaver was genuinely broken. You had the Arcane trait line built in, so you gave out protection for free, and you also had a Revive trait. You were 1200 range, everything you did was AoE, and you also did 40k DPS at the same time, right? Unbelievably disgusting build. Staff is weird. It really is a weird weapon on Ellie because it's the virtuoso problem. I mean, I get it. Like at this point, could you actually make Staff Weaver good again? What's really funny is that the game has been power crept to the point where actually you probably could. See, look, I'm throwing you guys a bone over there, the Ellie mains, right? If you actually added old Staff Weaver back, is that even that broken anymore? I'd say it's just quite comparable to what's in the game right now. Maybe it would be a little bit better because it's power damage, and it does have massive range and massive AoE.
Which version though? Because it was like the 52k DPS Staff Weaver iteration. That might be much.
I think let's imagine 40k Arcane Weaver.
Oh, that'd be fine.
I think that's not even that overpowered. It would be very strong. Because I think having the Geyser Revive trait is just very underrated component of that build. Actually, really, really strong ability. But compare that with Scourge and with Firebrand. Honestly, I can allow it, right? I can allow that being added into the game. I actually do think the key, you know, if you're an Ellie fan in the chat, I do actually think the Arcane trait line is your ticket back to being a god build, actually. That trait line is really, really good. If if that got buffed a little bit, if Staff got nudged up a bit and there was a build that ran Arcane, I actually think that Staff Weaver or some kind of Staff Elementalist build could definitely get back into play and could definitely end up being a lot stronger in the metagame. So if you're an Ellie fan, buff Arcane trait line, guys, and play Arcane.
Let's go.
No, Ellie mains will not like that because it is not the way they want it to be. They're just like Necro mains. They are only happy if the class is OP in the exact way that they want it to be OP. If you present them an alternate but still OP build, they'll still reject it because it's not correct.
Like, you know, like old Scourge.
Yeah, it's like if someone offers you a Ferrari but it's the wrong color, so you're like, I don't want that.
Yeah. No,
they don't want that.
I think that's a very frustrating thing for ArenaNet to deal with. Because there was a very long period of time when almost nobody played Scourge when it was 29,000 DPS, like a relatively low benchmark. That build was insane back then. And then they made it 37k, which, I mean, well, let's not even talk about that. But even when Scourge was 29k, that build was absurd. It was so strong. It was ridiculously strong, actually, in how powerful it really was. But people didn't play it because they're like, oh, it doesn't do DPS. And it did do DPS. I mean, if you actually look at how much damage Scourge did on encounters, it did really well, actually, particularly given how much defensive utility it has. But it didn't matter how many videos I made on that, Nike. I showed them on video how good it was.
So they don't care.
It didn't work.
That's all they want.
I do kind of like Minion Monster. What if I kind of agree? What if I do want Minion Monster in the game?
I mean, I think Minion Mancer should be. I mean, Guild Wars 1 Minion Mancer, it was an actual build that required you to like track things and do things. It wasn't just like a petting zoo that followed you around ambiently doing damage, like without you doing any input whatsoever.
Quite the grotesque petting zoo there.
Yeah,
pretty rough.
Yeah. I would not go to that petting zoo. That sounds bad to me.
Listen, sometimes you just need a flesh golem to cuddle up to.
Oh. Ooh. You've been looking at Noxie's Twitter there, Nike?
Should I be?
I mean, maybe you're interested in the not safe for work Twitter.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna look at that just to see who's like hitting the like button on the images, so I can keep track of those people.
I mean, yeah, it won't be me. Because I would never expose myself in that way.
I'm pretty sure I saw a like. Someone exposed you for liking something very bizarre on Twitter.
Wait, really?
I forget what it was. Yeah.
What did I like on Twitter?
What it was. This was weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Someone was like, "Look at this," and it was like some really weird, like furry thing or something like that.
Wait, what?
And it was liked by you.
What do you mean?
So,
what do you mean?
I'm telling you, I saw this.
This is some fucking fake bullshit, dude. What?
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's real.
I mean, maybe, who knows? I mean, that's a big expose. Look, I need another disconnect real quick, guys. Like, we're in trouble now. But anyway, moving on quickly from that, before anyone starts looking at my Twitter account, quickly, I need to alt-tab.
Yes, everyone comb his Twitter likes,
yeah, I'm
please.
gonna quickly maybe just remove something here real quick.
Oh.
What's up?
Oh, nothing.
Wait, Sneb's found it. Wait, did I actually want to see what it was now. I'm scrolling back to see what it was.
I didn't find it. I just was making comments.
Yeah.
For no apparent reason. You know, my Twitter's been blowing up with people telling me to play other games that are apparently good. So that's interesting. There's a lot of suggestions. I don't know if I can comb through all of them.
Yeah,
it'll be fun though.
Do you have like one you're leaning to already? Like...
Well, kind of.
Play Necropara on stream. It would be good.
Ooh.
I don't even know what that is, but I don't know if I want to know.
It's a catgirl simulator.
Isn't that game genuinely banned from Twitch, or am I mixing this up? I'm not sure. Might be.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. Like, I used to play old school RuneScape a lot. And so part of me wants to go and like hang out with that community a bit. Part of me wants to try Final Fantasy because I've never tried it and people have been harping on me too. But then there's also like, I kind of just want to go and play retro games as well because Teapot and I were talking about this the other night. Like, modern gaming is just disappointing a lot of the time. Like they monetize the crap out of everything. There's a lot of pay to win. Retro games don't have that. They're sort of simplistically beautiful. They're just beautiful because it's just the game. You just go play the game. And there's no like crazy DLC or whatever. It's just the game in its own purity. And I kind of miss that, right? Where it's not muddled up with advertisements and them playing this huge consumer psychology game with me all the time. I like to just play the game. So, I don't know. Like the games that I've been playing lately are like Warcraft 3. I played Diablo 2 and I played StarCraft 2. Been enjoying all those games. I played Heroes 3 of Might and Magic quite a bit off. I've never played it on stream, but I love Heroes 3 of Might and Magic. It's super fun. I also played through the entire StarCraft 1 and Brood War campaign, which let me tell you is actually like kind of hard. Like it's not easy, which surprised me a little bit. But yeah.
There you go.
So kind of want to try something different.
Yeah. You should play the new player experiences of all MMOs. I think that actually would be really interesting.
I actually, and part of me is really intrigued by that because, we criticize Guild Wars 2's experience quite a bit, but I actually think that other games have very similar problems. Like I saw this tweet about Warcraft that was saying how the average skill level of players is continually going down because everything in open world is handed to them. And I was like, isn't that just what we say about like people critique Guild Wars 2 for all the time? Isn't just the exact same criticism? So is it just a trend in MMOs where the content is becoming slightly more passive? I actually think that that's probably the case. I think a lot of games are becoming more and more passive over time. And I'm not putting any sort of evaluation on if that's a good thing or a bad thing necessarily. I think that's just the way that the world is working. People have limited time and they just want to be kind of go and experience it, not have to really be super challenged by it. And that's totally respectable and fine. But I kind of I really enjoy the games that test me a little bit. And I find that a lot of the retro games do that.
Yeah.
I could see you play for like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that's a feature of capitalism in that markets constantly have to expand and they have to constantly have higher like consumer share and all of that, and they have to constantly find new markets to expand into. And if you have already hit the saturation point where you can't get any more like quote unquote hardcore gamers, the only way to expand is to get non-gamers. And non-gamers want a different experience than the people who are already there playing the old school games.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It definitely, the gaming industry really has changed. It's a lot more about like an interactive movie. That's how a lot of people engage with video games these days, as opposed to something that it is going to push back, right? Like the days of dying to level 7 crab, that's gone, right? Like level 7 crab is no longer losable, right? And you can, I think WoW is the perfect example for this, right? Like if you look at classic WoW compared to current retail World of Warcraft, it's just night and day, right? In classic WoW, if you die, you might have to like walk 15 minutes to get back to your corpse, right? Just to play the game again, right? It will take you 15 minutes to walk back. Okay, at that point. In retail, well, they would never let that happen to you, right? Like, especially in the open world. Hey, I think it's really funny. We really shit on the open world being way too easy and the story being way too easy in this game. But seriously, I played WoW Legion, and I actually recently tried the new player experience in WoW because I was just curious. I wanted to see how it was, and it is actually unfailable. It is so much. The open world in that game is so much easier, actually. In WoW than it is in Guild Wars 2. It's not a surprise to me that players might move from WoW and then play Heart of Thorns and just get farmed, right? Get completely destroyed by like the open world mobs because they actually do damage, right? In this game, compared to like a lot of other MMOs. It's very weird, very unusual. I'm very tempted to try Final Fantasy just to play through the new player experience to see how hard it actually is, because I'd be super curious to see how it stacks up compared to Guild Wars 2.
It is not hard at all. Like this, there They've really like nailed their difficulty settings, but you don't have to engage with anything that's hard. Like it's very straightforward, but it's fun how they've got like the more harder stuff you can engage with if you want.
Yeah. What an interesting segue. I'm going
Yeah.
to de-segue now, and I think it's about time to wrap things up. Okay, I wasn't expecting. This was the tangent tea time, guys. Okay, we're teaching you guys a little bit about geometry right now while we're at it. Okay, tangent tea time. You know what though, Lara, I need you to wrap this up. Okay, and by doing that, what I mean is you have to say what is what do you think is the most controversial change that's going to happen to the balance patch? And also, what do you want to be buffed? What build do you want to be buffed beyond all absurdity?
Tempest. Heal Tempest.
Big.
Needs to be buffed.
Nice.
Most controversial change is Firebrand is staying the exact same.
Oh,
I think.
True. That's good, actually. Yeah, true. I like that. Yeah. That's good. That's a big brain play there, actually. Okay. That just about wraps it up. That's all I've got to say. I've got nothing else. That was it. That's all I had. So
Nice
yeah.
bombshell at the end.
And on that bombshell, this show is now Top Gear. Except, yeah, it's not. But anyway, gamers, I think that's just about enough for tea time. That's it. Yeah, very short tea time. They're 23 minutes. Very, very minor. Don't worry. We'll be back. We're back next week. We'll see if we can make it a half an hour if possible. But anyway, thank you all of you for watching. And of course, thank you so much to my wonderful guests here, jumping on the show to talk about some random stuff for a few hours. I really hope you had a good time here. And it's time for you to actually express just how wonderful you really are to the entire world. Chat, get me an ! Hosts in the chat so you can see all the links to these gamers. Hopefully it actually still works because I DC'd, but it might work and it should work. But Nike, it's been a little while. It's been a hot minute since you've been on the show. What are you up to these days? What's going on?
Playing some PoE, a little bit of Guild Wars 1, although I've been playing less Guild Wars 1 lately. Then a little bit of Zwift, probably the main game at this point. If you guys are looking for an MMO, hop on Zwift. You get in shape.
PvP as well.
Yeah, it's the only good PvP in any video game, and definitely the only good PvP in any MMO. No MMO
I just
has
like
PvP,
seriously Googled
PvP
this,
that
and now I feel like betrayed. I was like, what is this game? No.
It's by far the best PvP.
Okay. And Sneb, psychologically destroyed. And I quote, "The login screen has won. I cannot even log into Guild Wars 2 right now."
And the login screen has beat me a couple times this week. I've gotten to a login screen and I just listen to the music and it's like da 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 da. But then it's like that. I just listen to it for like 5 minutes and then I just exit and play StarCraft and then lose horribly for like an hour. But no, if you're ever interested in getting into raids on the NA server, we have a guild called the Skane Gang. We help people find raid groups. We have 28 raid groups meeting weekly now. 280 raiders out there. We have groups for people that are interested in just CMs. We have people, but all groups start as progression. So no matter what your skill level, we'd love to have you. So that's what we do in Guild Wars 2. Otherwise, I'll probably be continuing my all core Guardian adventure next. Probably the next plan. Got to do Wing 5, 6, and 7. So otherwise, I'll be playing a little bit of StarCraft, maybe a few other games. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Very nice. And the top right, disconnecting even more than me, a wholesome shield against the YouTube comments, ripping us to shreds. It is Lara.
I feel like you were disconnected for longer than I was, though.
That is true,
I
actually.
feel like there were more minutes there.
Yeah. So
I came back relatively fast.
And you had sound as well.
Yeah. Hey everyone, I stream on Twitch. I do Guild's YouTube videos. I will never be broken. I'm incapable of being broken by the login screen.
Sounds like a challenge.
Yeah. No, please don't. I know. I complain about my jaw surgeon on my stream a lot recently. I've been having some jaw issues.
Oh.
And the jaw surgeon just kind of keeps messing it up. So if that sounds fun to you, you should watch my stream. I kind of feel like I'm becoming like a semi-regular now on TeaTime. This is kind of fun.
Yeah.
This is
You're in now.
You just need people to flame
Never
you out
do.
in the comments weekly. That's the next step.
How long until they turn on
Lara
you?
is in.
People liked me for like 2 weeks. Then after that, now it's just
Yeah.
I mean, you did call Guild Wars 2 community roaches today.
That is true. You did do that. You're fucked. Because people are not going to get that because nobody plays RTS anymore.
nobody plays StarCraft.
There's going to be
They're
this
so confused.
amazing quote of, Sneb called the Guild Wars 2 player base roaches, right? On stream. Like,
oh, whatever. It wouldn't even matter if I offered to give them hundreds of gold to get a commander tag and teach them how to do Dragon's End. They'd still tell me that I was terrible.
Look at this YouTube comment.
One.
This is a new one. Oh, no, it's not. It's 2 days ago. You treat normal people as obstacles and objects. You are fucking repulsive. That's what
I thought it was about you.
It might have been about. That might be about me, actually.
No, but that's the same
Join
person that
TeaTime,
called
guys.
you a fascist.
This can happen to you. Look, if you're a content creator, you're out there, you're like, wow, TeaTime, that looks cool. And look, believe me, it is. You too can get comments like this. Okay, if you join this show, okay, get it here right now. Yeah, look, Will's like, yeah, get me in, right? Get me in right now. But anyway,
I think Will would self-destruct the YouTube comments aren't ready for Will. They would destroy.
Anyway, if you want to check out all these gamers, do ! Host in the chat. Look below the YouTube video. Look below the stream. You will find links there. You can go and look at all the content. And you should, by the way. You should go and look at all the content because if you don't, you're missing out, okay? You're getting that FOMO, guys, okay? So get in there right now. And of course, if you guys like TeaTime, you can follow the stream. You're already here. You might as well. You could follow me on Twitter. You could subscribe to YouTube. You could do that to everyone here. Wouldn't that be incredible? You go watch all the other 250 TeaTimes that have been done now. I mean, that'll keep you in content for a long time, right? You can grind out a lot of resources, grind out a bunch of rewards while you listen to every TeaTime ever. Listen to our opinions in reverse. Listen as we start out as doomers, but get happier as time goes on, right? And then get more depressed again, right? Listen to all that, the flow of the opinions, right? Wow, incredible. Experience history through the lens of Guild Wars 2 content creation. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. You should follow, you should subscribe, you should come back and watch all the videos. Like the video on YouTube. Leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts. We love discussion, okay? Some of the videos now, they get 400 comments. Make this video have 400 comments. And of course, we'll see you all next time on the next show. We have some other things to talk about, I am sure. That is it for now, though, my friends. Take it easy, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.